Прийшли окупанти до нас в Україну, форма новенька, воєнні машини, та трохи поплавився їх інвентар. Байрактар, Байрактар. Російські танкісти сховались в кущі, щоб лаптем посьорбати довбані щі, та трохи у чах перегрівся навар. Байрактар, Байрактар. Приперли зі сходу до нас барани для восстановлення
великої страни.
Найкращий пастух баранячих отар. Байрактар. Байрактар. І хто воде всяке озброєння різне, потужні ракети, машини залізні, у нас на всі доводи є коментар. Байрактар. Байрактар. Вони захопити хотіли нас зразу, а ми зачаїли на орків образу з російських бандитів. Робить примар. Байрактар. Байрактар. Російська поліція справи заводить, там вбивцю рашистів ніяк не знаходить. Хто винен, що в нашому полі глухар? Байрактар. Байрактар. Веде пропаганду кремлівський урод, слова пропаганди ковтає народ. Тепер нове слово знає цар.
Байрактар.
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 Yes.
The Leaf Street Army sends its regards.
О, бля! Игорь!
Hello, everyone. I'm the Enforcer, and I'm accompanied by Enforcer Matt.
And good evening, folks. It's Enforcer Matt, and welcome back to day 387 of the news. And it's good to see you all once again.
And of course, we're going to be covering the past 24 hours of the news of the war in Ukraine, but I have some very interesting things to share with y'all before tonight's stream. Of course, first off, I have to say that the limited edition merch run for the Amerifatti will be coming to a close tomorrow at the end of tomorrow night's stream. So make sure to get your Amerifatti merch while it's still on the store, because it is a limited edition run and will only be celebrating the Amerifatti for so long. It will be gone but not forgotten, but make sure to get yours. Of course, it supports the channel, it's a really cool design, and commemorates probably the funniest joke we've ever heard from a bot in the history of this channel. Speaking of t-shirts, we actually got an incredibly cool piece of mail from one of our viewers today, who is called, if I get his first name correct, Matthew, was Michael, and his last name was a little bit hard for me to pronounce. So what was his last name?
It was Charlie Nickel from, guess what?
Why the hell did I say
Sarcastes.
Michael? What the
I don't
hell?
know. I guess you're thinking about Friday the 13th.
Maybe, but I gotta thank Charlie so much for sending in the t-shirts, because we saw him today, we read the letter, it was a really nice letter, and although you've only been around for a little while, actually, Charlie's only been around since after the Daesh Without Borders fundraiser on the year anniversary, which is crazy to think that that he's so new to the Lee Spring Army, but nonetheless, he is already caught up on a lot of the jokes about this channel, the culture, and also sent us a whole bunch of cool shirts that were made by his little shirt company for us to wear. They're all like dry fits, they're really nice, and they got some really cool prints on them, and I gotta thank you so much once again for sending those, because I thought that was just a really nice gift all around. And so, with that, I hope we covered the fan mail fairly well. And speaking of fan mail, the Russians, well, more like the Ukrainians, have been getting a lot of fan mail today, and the Russians have been getting little, if not any. Starting off in Slovakia, we've actually heard some very interesting news today that I have not seen many people cover at all today. Poland yesterday made the announcement that they'll be sending 4 MiG-29s to Ukraine within the next few days, and about a dozen in the next month or two. Slovakia just announced today that they will also be sending 13 MiG-29s, which is their entire MiG-29 force in the Slovakian Air Force, to the Ukrainian Air Force for them to use in the war. We got the link to the bit of news right here. And there it is. There's a picture of one of the Slovakian MiG-29s. Oddly enough, it looks kind of like a MiG-29 like the rest of them, but these will be sent to Ukraine to help support them in the war effort. And I think this is absolutely incredible, because this means that at the minimum, Ukraine will be getting around 25 MiG-29s, and that's a fairly large amount, especially if we even look at the Ukrainian Air Force's size before the war. So let me go here, and let's go to the Ukrainian Air Force. And then let's scroll all the way down to the aircraft they have. So the MiG-29 numbers that they had before the war was 43 MiG-29s. If we take the assumption that they've lost half of those MiG-29s, because they say that they've lost half of their air force over the course of the war, that means that their MiG-29 force will be just a little larger than it was going into the war by just a couple of MiG-29s. So that is incredibly good to hear, and great to know that they will be getting a replenishment of those aircraft. And I just got to say, that's really fantastic to think the Slovakians are stepping up to this degree and giving every single one of their MiG-29s in support of the war effort. No other country has given up an entire, I guess you could say, air wing of their air force in support of Ukraine. Slovakia is the first. Poland was the first to send jets. Slovakia is the first to give up pretty much an entire section of their air force to Ukraine. And I gotta say, that is absolutely incredible in terms of support, and hopefully this changes around the air war in Ukraine and allows the Ukrainians an extra needed boost in trying to gain air supremacy over the Russian-occupied areas in Ukraine. The MiG-29s that we see in Ukraine right now are also modified to be able to carry the AGM-88 HARMs, which are anti-radiation missiles, which these MiG-29s could also be modified to do, and we could see that they potentially are used in a wild weasel form, trying to take out enemy radar installations and also enemy anti-aircraft installations as well, to try and clear up that airspace and make it a little bit more free for the Ukrainians to use. With that, we're now going to be moving on from the Slovakian news and on into Poland, because we actually saw another interesting bit of news today at the Rezha airfield, just about a dozen or so miles from the Ukrainian border, where we saw Canadian Leopard tanks arriving inside of Poland. Here we can see one of those first Leopard 2s right here on the back of a truck bed. It appears that it's being chained down so that way it can be transported throughout the rest of the country. We can see them being offloaded from the C-17 right there. They're Leopard 2 A4s, and if I remember correctly, I believe the Canadians did say they were going to provide Leopard 2 A4s, although for some reason I thought it may have been a Leopard 2 A5 that they were going to provide. Nonetheless, it's still a great tank, way better than any of the Soviet-era tanks that we've seen used in Ukraine, and it's good to know that some of the first Leopard 2 tanks have finally arrived, and hopefully will be used in Ukraine here in the near future. There's already 4 of them inside of Ukraine that were sent by Poland, and these will certainly be adding to those numbers. We're now moving out of Poland and making sure that we are not missing anything in Russia, and we are not, and make sure we're not missing anything internationally, we're not. So now it's time for us to move on into Kyiv and start to cover a bit of news that we saw occur over last night. Last night, a drone attack, from what we can tell, started. It seems as though there weren't any missiles being used in this attack. From what we've been able to collect, it was almost entirely Shahed 136 drones that were used in these attacks. The Ukrainian, I guess you could say anti-air forces, were able to shoot down a fairly decent amount of these. However, that doesn't mean that all of them were shot down and none of them were able to make it to their target. Some would. And over the city of Kyiv last night, we heard the air sirens sounding outside as the Shaheds started to slowly make their way into the airspace of the city. And we can hear those air sirens in the distance. Unfortunately, we can't see the Shahed drones that may be in the airspace right there in that clip, but of course, the Shaheds did fly over Kyiv, but from what we understand, most, if not all, of the Shaheds that flew towards the capital city were shot down. However, that was not the case in the town of Konstantinivka, which is just a few miles behind the front lines in Bakhmut. Shahed drones took off from what we can assume is Luhansk direction over the front lines and into the town of Konstantinivka. Unfortunately, these would be successful in hitting their targets and ended up hitting an oil depot inside of the town. We got multiple videos and multiple angles of these Shahed drones flying in, and then also the ensuing fire from the oil depots, and so here's the first clip showing the drone flying in. We can see the red circle covering the Shahed. We can see it flying in right there, and we can see that the depot has already been hit. So this appears to be one of several Shaheds that hit this oil depot. The fire, of course, already blazing, and the next Shahed coming in to most likely add to the blaze. Now, moving on into our next clip, we also saw the fire continue on later on in the night, right here. So let me get you all this clip. And in this clip, they say it was a hit from an MLRS on the fuel depot. Of course, from what we can see in the video we just saw, it appears that it was actually a Shahed attack instead. So here's the clip. When you see the infernos erupting from the oil storage depots.
Jeez.
And it's a massive fire. It appears that a large amount of oil was struck and caught on fire in this attack. And this may cause some small issues for the Ukrainian military in the area, especially the armored forces that rely heavily on the gasoline and oil that is stored inside of these depots.
Looks like a normal day in Ohio to me.
Yes. I mean, that's pretty true at this point. And then moving on into our final clip, we also saw the fire continuing on in the distance. It says in this one that the Russians hit a residential building, which may show that one of the Shaheds hit outside of the oil depot, right nearby into a residential building. But it kind of looks like a continuation of the oil depot fire that was going on in the other clips, although it's getting closer to morning and the fire is starting to subside. Nonetheless, this attack appears to may have had some impact on the frontline situation in Bakhmut, and if we zoom in here, we might be able to find where these oil silos are. Because I didn't try to look for them beforehand, but let's see where they are. And let's see, these look like abandoned industrial areas right here. That looks like it's not an oil silo. Looking for oil silos. Not really seeing any big ones that stick out. So unfortunately, I cannot find them. But maybe someone else can. Let's look up here. Nope, can't find them up there either. That's kind of weird. But nonetheless, the oil strike on the oil depots in Konstantinivka, we actually cannot get a size scale for these oil depots because I can't find them. If anyone knows where these were inside of Konstantinivka, share the coordinates with us in the live chat so that way I can pull them up and try and see where it is. Because depending on the size of the oil depot that was hit and the extent of the damage, this may seriously hinder Ukrainian infantry and also Ukrainian motorized units in the area from operating their vehicles because the fuel supplies that they may have been drawing off of may be seriously damaged and they may have to start rationing fuel supplies while they bring in more from elsewhere and set up a new storage depot. So this could be a bit of a concerning situation. Of course, we're going to have to wait as the next few days unfold to see what impact this oil depot hit really did have on Ukrainian forces. But of course, we're going to...
Also, real quick, I see a lot of people saying it might have been a grain silo instead of an oil depot. I'm not sure if that is the case, though. I couldn't tell.
Grain? Does grain explode?
Oh, yeah, it can explode.
Let's see. Let me pull that up on the second screen real quick here. YouTube. Well, wait a minute. Grain silo exploding. Shocking moment. A grain store explodes after collapsing. So let's take a look at this. This is from the Daily Mail, and it shows a grain storage that appears to have buckled. So let's see if it explodes like that. So you see some grain coming out of the bottom. And it looks like just grain's coming out. Now it tips over, the grain comes out, and oh my god, it really does explode!
Yeah, it's very flammable. I think it's the dust that's flammable.
God, okay. Correction there. It appears that it could be grain, because I didn't know that grain could explode like that. Let's look back, though. Well, really, it looks like it was like a flash explosion. It doesn't look like it stayed around for long. I mean, hell, look, there's grain pouring out, and there's grain on the ground, and it's not on fire.
It's probably enough to catch, like, surrounding buildings on fire, that quick flash fire.
Maybe. If anyone could share with us the coordinates of the grain silo in Konstantinivka, we would love to know that as well, because we may have to go back and correct that, because from what we were able to collect before the stream, it seemed as though it was oil depots, although we couldn't find any in Konstantinivka. So if it is a grain silo, please share that with us and show us the coordinates of where it is in Konstantinivka, so that way we can find it and confirm whether it was an oil depot or a grain silo. If it was a grain silo, then that's insane to think that a grain silo can explode, because I knew that hay bales could explode under the right conditions. I didn't know that grain could also explode like that. But let's go back and look at that clip one more time. Let's see, the explosion of the fuel depot right here, at least what's claimed to be the fuel depot. Now let's see how long that fire lasts. So when he turns the camera around, fire's still going on at a pretty consistent rate. The smoke, we can't really tell what it is. It looks like a mix in between black and white. It's kind of like a grayish or a tannish white color, which doesn't really indicate ammunition or oil. It may actually be grain. I don't see anyone giving us coordinates to the grain depot yet. But let's look around Konstantinivka now and let's see if we can find the grain depot, because it would be very important to get down to the bottom of this one, considering that it looked as though it may have been an oil depot from the size of the explosion, but considering we couldn't find any oil depots, maybe it's a grain. So that's certainly not a grain depot. That looks like some kind of a metallurgical plant or something like that. Let's see. Let's move further back in the town. This doesn't really look like a grain storage either. Let's check that, though. Let's see. That looks kind of like a school, but it's not listed as a school. Let's see. And then we have a sewage treatment plant out there. So let's move down here. Maybe it's closer to the eastern side. Let's see, not really seeing any grain silos here. And I'm not really seeing any signs of really anything that shows an oil silo or a grain silo, or any silo for that matter. It doesn't really look like there's a lot of storage in this town. Someone said, look near the railroad. So let's switch over and find the railroad. So here we go, and let's look over here. So we have, let's see here. That's a metallurgical facility right there on this rail yard, so we know what that's for. Nothing down there. No grain silos down here. Going up here. No grain silos up here as well. So let's go over to the other side of town. And not seeing any grain silos here either. So, kind of at a loss. Of course, there's this building, but that kind of looked like a school when we clicked on it. And a lot of people are saying the grain silo would most likely be near a railroad. Most likely would be, but we really can't find any that are near a railroad. Maybe it's up here, but this is getting all the way up into the area of Druzhkivka, which is way north, and it's not actually Konstantinivka. So unfortunately, we really can't confirm that right now. But if anyone does have coordinates that they can share with us about the grain silos or oil depots in Konstantinivka, send that to us and help us get to the bottom of this, because it was listed on all of these videos as a fuel/oil depot. But if it is a grain silo, we'll look into that and see about correcting that if we can get any information to contradict what we have. So with that, we're now.
I think I got some for you. Check your Discord DM, and I think that might be them.
So let's check it out. Let's put that in right there. Let's copy that.
Courtesy of Pavel.
And thank you, Pavel, for sending that in. So let's go and put in the coordinates. Click right there. But that looks like I don't know. I mean, like, it looks like a sewage treatment plant.
Yeah, I really can't tell what that is. It doesn't look like a grain silo from the top, at least. Although I'm not an expert in this, so I don't know.
I don't know. I mean, like, it could be a grain silo. Let's see, photos. There's some more photos down here, and it won't let me click on them. And let's see, Heaven is sending in the coordinates again, I believe. It looks like it might be, but that would be very weird to store grain near what appears to be a sewage treatment plant. And Robert's saying it's sewage, and it looks like a sewage treatment plant. So if we can find some other coordinates, I don't think that may be the one, because it seems as though that would be a health and safety issue to have grain storage right on a sewage treatment plant. So if we can get more coordinates, I would be more than happy to look at those as well, because if our information is incorrect and it isn't an oil depot, I'd rather correct that sooner than later. But right now, we can't really find either the oil storage depot or the grain storage depot, wherever they may be in the town. So with that, we're going to be moving on. We'll circle back to that if we get any additional information. And moving on down into the outskirts of Kyiv, or really anywhere in Ukraine. We couldn't really locate this one, but I didn't want to put in the location unknowns. We saw something very interesting. Of course, Ukrainian soldiers do get wounded just like Russian ones. It's just not at the same rate. But this soldier here actually had to end up getting an amputation because his leg had been so thoroughly damaged that it had to be removed. He got a prosthetic in replacement for that leg, and this is one of the most advanced prosthetics I've seen given to a soldier in the war, and I thought this was incredibly cool, so I'll show you all the clip. You can see them showing off the prosthetic leg and the knee joint right there. We see him lifting up his leg, and we can actually see, like, this. It's very interesting. It's like this delayed movement here. I don't know what's causing that, but the leg actually articulates at the knee joint.
Oh, that's weird.
Yeah, it's really cool. It doesn't look
cool though.
I don't know if it's like a mechanized process where there's some kind of motors in the leg that do that and it runs on a battery charge, or if that's just gravity doing the job. But it's a pretty impressive leg. And so with that, that's the end of that clip, but I gotta say, that is impressive to see the kind of prosthetics that the Ukrainians are getting their wounded soldiers. We haven't seen this given out to a lot of them, but this is probably one of the most advanced prosthetics we've seen, and it's great to know that the Ukrainian government does care about their soldiers enough that even when they're wounded, they will still make sure to provide them with the best prosthetics they can find. And so, with that, we're now going to be moving on from that clip. Really cool to see. And now moving on into our location unknowns. But before we do that, I actually saw that Terry Richardson also threw in some coordinates. So I'm going to yank those up real quick. We're going to throw them in and see if that shows us the grain silos in Konstantinivka. So let's put that in right here. And let's zoom out. This is actually in Novomoskovsk. And it appears that this is, in fact, a grain silo. You can see all of the grain silos right there. You can see the unloading buildings right here as well. And so that's interesting because we did get one clip, and I'll go back here and show this to y'all, and this is why we ended up locating this in Konstantinivka. We did get one clip that said it was Konstantinivka. Let me see which one it is. This is Konstantinivka, and then this is the one here, I believe, that says Konstantinovka, which, and let me make sure that was correct right here. Konstantinovka. This is the town. No, this is Novomoskovsk. So I saw that misspelling. I put it in Google Maps earlier, and it ended up finding Konstantinivka, and then that correlated with the video here, I believe, that also said... This one actually said Novomoskovsk, and then this one said Konstantinovka, which then corrected to Konstantinivka. And so, considering that that video and the other one were about supposedly the same thing, they all ended up getting thrown in Konstantinivka. So we're actually going to go back and change the locations, except for this one. We'll keep that one there. We're going to move these two to elsewhere. So let me grab these and send them over here. So it does appear that these were actually a grain silo right outside of the city of Dnipro. So let me move these over here, and let me change that from fuel depot to grain depot. Grain. There we go. So we'll put that over there. And thank you so much, Terry, for providing the coordinates, so that way we could correct that on the news instead of just leaving that standing. So now to correct the story, apparently a residential building was hit in Konstantinivka, which had no correlation to the explosions that we saw in the other two clips, although it looks similar. And then an explosion happened from a Shahed drone in the area of Novomoskovsk, just north of Dnipro, hitting the massive grain silos inside of that town and causing a fire that we can't really tell has... we can't really tell the damage and the extent of. It appears that it did catch the grain silos on fire, and considering the close proximity of them, it may be assumed that the fire spread to all of the silos and ended up damaging a large amount of the grains. But we can't really say that for certain right now because we don't have any footage in the daytime. All we know is that there was a massive explosion on the grain silos, and it appears that a decent amount of damage may have been incurred. So I want to thank Terry so much once again for giving us those coordinates, so that way we could actually find out that it was in need of correction, and that's the actual story right there. So with that, we're now going to be moving on from what is clearly a terrorist attack as well, because when you think about it, why the hell would they attack a grain silo and go out of their way to use guided drones like the Shaheds to do it? That is a attempt to destroy food sources. And that in its own right may as well be terrorism in its own way. So with that, we're now going to be moving on from Novomoskovsk and on into our location unknowns, now that we've been able to correct that. And so, starting off with our first bit of location unknown news, we saw today a pet mouse. It appears that it's the return of Ratatouille, Ratatouille. So let's check it out. And we see Ratatouille. It's a cute little mouse, actually.
That almost looks like a hamster.
It kind of does look like a hamster. Maybe it's a rouse, like a wait a minute, a house, hamster mouse. When you see them holding
Maybe.
it's a very docile mouse, or a house, one or the other. We can see it just sitting there chilling out. Little baby. That thing's cute. I was actually watching a video, speaking of which, about some kind of a predatory mouse that lives in, actually I don't believe it's a predatory mouse. It was some kind of mouse with long legs, and it got up and ran on its hind legs, kind of like a kangaroo. It was very interesting. And someone just said, it's a vole. But it's called a mouse. But let me pull it up, a vole. Oh.
And you say a predatory mouse?
Yeah, I think
is there such a thing?
Let's see. Predatory mouse. Let me pull that up because I think there is. The southern grasshopper mouse is a species of predatory rodent native to Mexico in the states of Arizona, California, Nevada, New Mexico, and Utah. So there is a predatory mouse that lives here in America, and there's a picture of it.
It just looks like a mouse, like mixed with a rat, like based on the tail.
Yeah, you sit there and walk up to that one and go, "Oh, that's a cute little mouse," and then it bites your finger, and it starts eating it. It's going, "This tastes like KFC, delicious." But anyways, this is apparently what they actually had. It was not a field mouse; it's a vole. Oh, look at that thing. That's
Oh,
cute.
I like the Vol.
Yeah, I like these little foldings. These things are cute.
Kind of looks like Mr. Lunchtime.
Mr. What? No, Mr. Lunchtime did not look cute. What the hell?
No, not.
Oh man, but look at these little things. I didn't even know that there was I didn't even know that voles looked this cute. Didn't know there was a vole, but I never really knew what a vole looked like. Because I remember I went and got some shotgun shells one day. It was like birdshot or something, and on the casing it said it could kill voles. And I was like, what the hell's
Oh,
a
man.
vole? I was like, I don't know what a vole is. But it's actually these little cute things.
I wouldn't want to use it on that.
No, I wouldn't want to use it on that either. And look at that one. It's playing a flute. Anyways, we got to get off of this rabbit hole. Still a cute one nonetheless. And we actually found out they have a pet vole. What should they name this vole? Does anyone have an idea? Because I think we ought to call it, let's see. I don't know.
Call it Vol on a roll.
It's a vole on a roll. Oh,
That sounds like a Russian snack.
You know what that sounds like? That sounds like some kind of a posh restaurant you would find in I don't know, like a high end of a town is vole on a mole or something like that, vole on a bowl
Yeah.
or something. But anyways,
And
with
the prices are outrageous, like
Yeah.
$100 a dish.
$100, you don't even get full. But with that, we're on to the next bit of location unknown news, where we can see some high Ukrainian morale. And I'm going to have to mute that because that's actually a copyrighted song. But we can see them here having a fun time, joking around, thumbs up, doing little hand signals, repping the set, shaking hands, smacking someone in the chest, holding a book, SU-27 flying over at a very low speed, by the way. That's like maybe, I don't know, 300 miles per hour. Dude, those things are so huge. When they fly slow, you realize how big the modern fighter aircraft are. It's like, dang, that thing's like the size of a B-17. And they are. But with that, that's seeing the clip, and very nice to see that Ukrainian morale is still pretty high, of course, showing those few clips. We're now moving on into the next one, where we also saw that a Mavic drone went out on its journey today to drop some bomblets onto the Russians. And so, here is a clip of the bomblet dropping on a massive squad of fellas. Not NAFO fellas, but Russian fellas. When you see the bomblet falling on the left side of the squad, exploding right on top of one of them, and it looks like he fell over. It looks like everyone, as a matter of fact, has fallen over there. The Mavic's now moving up again, although the video froze there for a second. And it's now lining up another bomblet for the guys that appear to maybe be straddling the side of a creek or a ditch. The bomblet then falls in the largest group of them, exploding right on them, which takes out another score of them, maybe 3 or 4 of them. We now see them dropping a third bomblet, this one once again falling on a 2-man group, exploding nearby, and it looks like it may have taken out the first guy, the second guy may be wounded, and the third guy above the bomblet may have also been wounded, although we really couldn't tell. We see another one dropping. And these guys, man, they are getting the short end of the stick today. You've been sent out on combat assignment, bled. And now they're all, what the hell, Matthew? The bomb exploded, and then the Russians went, it's time for mass migration. Get up, everyone. We go. And then it's like, we're on the move, bled.
There's
They're
no
just-
leadership at all. Everybody's just running around.
Yeah, and they're just leaving behind the literal field of guys that are just laying down back there, taking naps. Where you see another one fall on them and explode, taking out another score of them. I don't know how many that one took out, but it was a pretty decent amount. All of them are now down on the ground again, rolling around. We can see 2 of them being attacked here in the center of the screen, bomblet exploding. We can now see them on the side of a ditch, bomblet falling right on top of one of them, exploding on him. I guess you could say he's having a bit of a bad day. Oh, dear.
Honey.
Honey. China will be sending them a wish.com like a Bobcat for that. Well, you see another one explode on top of them. I gotta say, these F1 bomblets from this drone operator are dead on the mark. I haven't seen a single one miss yet. I don't know what it is, but this guy has got like F1 bomblets that may as well have fins on them because they are so accurate. This one just got a score of 3 guys. We see them all just kind of hanging out there going, oh, my back. And we can now see them moved on to another clip. They're dropping another F1 grenade. And it looks like it got that guy as well. Russians, of course, never listen to the manual, but this one guy who is on his own, so I guess you could say the spacing is incredible. He was standing out there in the street, bomblet fell in front of him, and it looks like he staggered around a little bit. And, yeah, he's still just staggering around. Huh. He's like, I can't see without my glasses. I don't know what happened. We now see another bomblet dropping on top of a group of, well, actually just one guy. And we can actually see a little animal running around the field over there at the top of the screen. It's like maybe a mouse or something, like we just saw in the last clip, right up there.
I've never really understood why the Ukrainians waste an entire bomblet on one guy. Like, it was just one guy standing there, wasn't it?
Yeah, it's just one guy. But then again, you know, they're only like $30. So, you know, it's $30 to take out thousands of dollars of equipment on this guy and a Russian soldier. So I guess it is effective in a way. And also, did anyone notice this? I don't know if this is just, you know, per se normal, but has anyone noticed how many little rats are crawling around the field? Like in this clip? You know, and
that's the Russians' only food they've got at this point.
And that may be so, but another thing I was thinking, Matthew, is that's a lot of rats. I mean, like, that's a lot of rats for such a small area. Maybe they're finding a new food source, if you know what I mean, because that happened a lot in the First World War. So that may be a good.
It could be.
Yeah, I mean, like that may be a good indicator of how many losses the Russians are taking. Is that the rat population or the mouse population is starting to soar on the front lines because there's just so much newly available food just lying around that the Russians are leaving behind, and so. And of course, I hope you all know what I mean by food. You know, it's not kibble or anything. But with that, we're now moving on to our next clip of Location Unknown News, where we saw a turret in a field. It's just a simple picture, but the caption was pretty interesting. I was like, yeah, it kind of does. It said the turret of a destroyed Russian tank looking like a skull, and it's just a drone looking down at a turret that has already completed its turret toss, received its score, and is now sitting in this field until the war ends. Of course, it was the turret of a T-72B3 as well. We can tell that by the armor tile layout. But it does kind of look a little bit like a skull, you know, like the eyes, the nose, and then the armor tiles down here are the mouth.
So you're saying they didn't intend to make that?
Oh, no, they didn't intend to make it. It just looks like it.
That's wild.
Yeah, it's kind of wild. And I think if they removed the barrel, it would look a lot more like it, but I don't think anyone's going around trying to make modern art out of turrets. But still, the resemblance is uncanny. It's very close. We're now moving on from that bit of Location Unknown News and on into our next one. And I had to make sure to put a special caption on this one because we have a longtime channel legend that watches this channel often. And I have to check. I have to make sure he's here tonight. So, let's see. Joseph. He's not in the live chat. Joseph
the
Sika.
only night he is not here. Man.
Joseph Sika, if you are here, please stand up. We got to know if you're here. But we found this today, and I thought that Joseph M. Sika, who is a longtime channel supporter, channel legend, and an old guard, would be very happy to see this. They got the smalls. Finally, there's finally smalls in Ukraine. We don't know when they were delivered. We've never even heard of a support package giving these to the Ukrainians, but here it is. It's the small. Also, we're going to have to mute the garbage music. That actually didn't sound that much different from it, but anyways.
My ears.
We can see them lining up the schmo. And just look at that right there. And about to fire it. Boom, fired it. It's going down range, explodes right down there. And look at that. It's the first time. Well, actually, it's not the first time because you can see a whole bunch of expended rounds on the floor, but it is the first time we've ever seen a small in Ukraine. And I hate to know that Joseph isn't here for this night. He's been asking about this forever. I think it's been over a half year now. He's been saying, where are the smalls? The U.S. has tons of these. They're very cheap. They're very effective. Where are these smalls? They need to show up. And they're finally here. We finally got a video footage, a video clip of one of these things. And it's incredible to know that the weapon that Joseph Msika has been talking about for so long is finally in Ukraine, and Ukrainian forces will probably be using them here in the near future. Absolutely incredible. And with that, we're now going to be moving on from that little clip. I hope that Joseph Sika sees this eventually. And if he hops in the live chat later on tonight, y'all, make sure to tell him to go back to the 46-minute mark and watch the stream there and then come back to the current time on the stream, because I want him to see that the Smalls have finally arrived. That's incredibly cool. And so with that, we're on to our last bit of Location Unknown news, where we can see the Russian losses. And Russian losses... Oh, look, Matthew! Oh my God, Melissa Smith!
Hey, we're back in business. Look, the Bobcat is literally vibrating around.
Dude, that Bobcat is raring to go, man. That thing's ready for a Wish.com order. Put some nitrous in that thing, do a wheelie, call it the Cougar Cat. Anyways.
Yeah. Oh, it has 3 likes on it.
Oh, look at that. It's got 3 likes. No comments, though, but 3 likes. And also 646 people have seen it. Hey, I love it. I love it. The Melissa Smith.
600 people were very confused.
646 people are like, I'm missing out on something here to get the relevance of this one, but that is incredibly cool. Anyways, moving on from Melissa Smith's incredibly cool comment on the casualty report today, the casualty report has been somewhat high. Not as high as yesterday, but it is still quite high. 760 Russian soldiers have eaten lead and also taken naps over the past 24 hours. You can say the Russian soldiers are getting out of this war quicker than most people are getting out of a Nickelback concert. We also saw that 13 armored personnel carriers were knocked out over the past 24 hours as well, which is very interesting to see. A fairly average number, kind of about as average as I guess you could say Vladimir Putin's looks, which is nothing to say much about. We also saw that 7 supply trucks were destroyed. A somewhat low number, actually. We've seen about 10 to 12 being destroyed on average per day, but we have not seen a number this low in quite a while, at least 2 weeks. So fairly interesting to see that there's been a lack of supply vehicles being destroyed. 2 tanks were destroyed today. This is actually a fairly low number. We usually see that around 8 to 10 tanks are being destroyed per day over about the past 2 weeks. So seeing only 2 of them being destroyed is something interesting, suffice it to say. We also saw 13 artillery pieces get destroyed over the past 24 hours. This is actually a fairly consistent number. And I gotta say, it's not that bad. Not that bad. What do you think, man? It's not that bad. It's a baker's dozen.
I think it's not that bad. I gotta agree.
And I gotta agree. Also, I gotta answer this. Noodle said, what the hell did Nickelback do? Nickelback didn't do nothing. I just said the joke just to say it. I'm not taking a shot at him or anything. Nickelback, I've heard them before, like I think once. They're not that bad.
We think that's bad. People got really upset about my Ohio joke earlier. Some people from Ohio got offended big time.
Hey, Ohio isn't on fire as they're drinking water that looks like it's like a bubble
Sludge.
Yes, wait a minute, hang on, man. Right now, if you go to Ohio and you stick one of those little bubble things into your water, you can pull it out and blow bubbles. It's kind of rough up there right now, with the water, at least, in one area, but I don't know if that's still persisting to this day. I wouldn't really know. Anyways, no drones were destroyed, at least right now. The casualty report will be updated tomorrow to include some of the drones that were shot down over tonight. We also saw 1 MLRS get destroyed. Only 1. We've actually seen some very high MLRS losses over the past few days, and this is very interesting to see that they've only lost 1 today, so it appears that the lucky streak of being able to destroy MLRS batteries like nothing is coming to an end, and we may see that the MLRS losses come in at a somewhat slower rate. We also saw that no aircraft were destroyed today, according to the casualty report, although we saw an SU-25 get shot down over Kherson today, so that will be included in tomorrow's casualty report. We saw 1 helicopter was shot down. We don't know where that one was shot down. We didn't get any video of it, but 1 was included in the casualty report today. And of course, as we already saw Melissa Smith comment on, which I still think is so cool, because y'all don't know how much it flips us out to see that viewers of this channel, members of the Lee Spring Army, and longtime Old Guard members call us out, call them out, in other places. Like whenever I'm roaming through Reddit and someone says something about us, or on Twitter, it like makes our day, because it's so cool to see that people do think about us outside of the stream and think about our jokes and mention them with us. And it's like, oh, that's so freaking cool. I mean, like it's so cool. It's always cool to get fan mail, little shout outs, things like that. We love it. I'm not trying to actively encourage y'all to do that, although we would not have a problem if y'all did, but we love it nonetheless. I think it's just super cool, and we always get super excited when it's like, oh my god, people actually like know about us, and actually talk about it. Also, another thing, the coolest thing that's ever happened, speaking of that, just a quick rabbit hole, the coolest thing that ever happened is that after the stream one night, I couldn't go to sleep because I drank so much coffee, so I hopped on a game called Hell Let Loose, which is a World War II first-person shooter game that's somewhat realistic. And I got on there, and I was in a squad, and I started talking, and someone said, "Oh my god, it's the Enforcer!" And they actually watched the channel, and I was like, that was the coolest thing ever. I forgot their gamer tag. I think they added me as a friend after that match. I can't really remember. But still, that was incredibly cool to me, and I still remember that to this day. And also, I remember that we were playing on the Kharkiv map, which was the most ironic thing because, it's in Ukraine. Anyways, that's the casualty report. Once again, fairly high losses in the ground forces, and hopefully these losses will help the war to end a little bit sooner, as there's a decent amount of equipment being lost on a day-to-day basis. We're now going to be moving on from the Russian casualty report and on out of the location unknowns altogether. And so we're now going to be moving on into Kreminna, where we saw that Russia's latest, greatest, and finest vehicles bit the dust today in a very nice fashion. And the Ukrainians actually showed us the proof in the pudding. And so, with that, we're now about to be moving into Kreminna and the Northeast as a whole, but we have some impressive polls to cover. And so with that, what do we got, Matthew?
All right, so tonight we have some very interesting polls, and first up, we have the one that says, will the ICC's arrest warrant for Putin result in actual consequences in the near future? I've seen a ton of people mentioning this in the live chat. It's been all over the news today, and it seems like that's the only story going around that people are really picking up on the news today. So, 48% said no, it is largely symbolic. 35% said it depends on if they can get them. 4% said unsure. 12% said he will face punishment soon. And on this one, I got to say that it is definitely justified that they issued an arrest warrant for Putin. However, it is largely symbolic because they cannot get to him. There may be some results, maybe if he's ousted from power one day and they can capture him and take him into custody. But for now, nothing's really going to happen. And even if he left the country right now, the agents from the ICC or whoever's going to arrest him would have to defeat his entire Secret Service force to be able to get to him, to actually place handcuffs on him and take him away to be jailed. So the odds of anything like that happening are very slim, and it could potentially set off a bad chain reaction of events if they try to do that. So I'm not even sure if it can even act as a travel ban, but it's definitely symbolic, and it's good that they went ahead and did it anyway. But Enforcer, what say you?
I would have to say it's symbolic. It doesn't really have much impact on anything for that matter, because, and I'll explain why. Because it's really cool to hear that they did do that. I think that's great. It's a great ceremonious thing to do. It doesn't really have a lot, though, to do with actually getting to him. Because it's not like, oh, the ICC put out an arrest warrant for Putin, and the sheriff's department of Osula County shows up to the Kremlin and arrests him and puts him in cuffs. That's not how that works. No one can get to him in Russia, and the ICC isn't going to show up to the Russian border and go, we're with the ICC, flash the badge, we're here to arrest Putin, and the border guards just go, oh, go ahead, he's all right in the Kremlin, and then they go and arrest him. That's not going to happen. There's no way to get to him right now, and on top of that, Matthew was mentioning if he traveled internationally, they would have to get to his entire Secret Service contingent. If he traveled internationally, there is probably already an agreement in place for him to go somewhere. For example, Kazakhstan, which is highly unlikely these days, or Iran, or China. And China and Iran aren't going to sit there and go, yes, please come here, and then when he shows up, have him arrested. I mean, like, hell, that wouldn't be in their interest to do that. That would really put the Russians on a bad diplomatic stance as well, because Putin would still technically be the president of Russia. And so the Russians would be demanding for him to be returned because, his cronies in the government may not want to betray him because he may be able to still pull some strings from imprisoning, get them from afar. So even if he did travel abroad, obviously he's not going to be traveling to a country like Poland or Estonia that will be upholding the ICC's arrest warrant. he will be traveling to a country that will blatantly, I guess you could say, defy the arrest warrant and not inform the ICC that he's in Iran or refuse to let the ICC in to arrest the guy. On top of that, once again, he does have his entire Secret Service staff with him at all times, and it's such a large staff of people that are guarding him that they even collect his urine and crap and somehow have people specialized for those roles. So I would highly doubt that they'll ever be able to get to him, but it is a nice thing to know that the ICC did put out an arrest warrant, because for anything, it's a good symbolic stance to make. And so with that, I hope that does address that question fairly well, and with, well, that poll fairly well. And with that, we are on to the next one. Also, Matthew, if you can find a way for me to go down a rabbit hole about Poland, I tried to read a good amount about Poland last night after stream. So if you find any way for me to do that, let me know. But with that, we're on to the next poll.
All right. And also, real quick, I saw something out of the live chat. Bilbo Jenkins said, is it a dead or alive warrant? And I don't think it's that type of that type of warrant. If it was, I'd be shocked, because that's basically like a mercenary contract sort of deal. I think it's only capturing him alive, and I doubt the ICC would get in the business of executing people because they couldn't take him into custody. But interesting question. Enforcer, what do you think real quick about that one?
If anybody can catch the man dead or alive, you'll get yourself a $100 silver dollar bounty reward. Nah, they're not doing that. I don't think it's dead or alive. I think it's.
Wouldn't it be nice though?
That would be funny, man. if Santa Elliott showed up dressed up as a cowboy, you're coming with me, and Putin said, yeah, sir, and then he just pulled out a .45 revolver and shot him, and just said, contract's done, and then just loaded him up on the back of a horse in the middle of like the UN hall and just carted him out. I mean, that would be funny as hell to me. But no, that's not going to happen, especially considering that most Western countries that would uphold this are not even into the death penalty whatsoever. That would be very bizarre for them to go dead or alive. Because I think even if they were somehow able to arrest Putin and hold him accountable without any repercussions in Europe, they probably wouldn't execute him. They'd probably put him in a prison or something like that. Because it just, for some reason, it seems like everyone is just critically against, these days, at least on the international scale, a death sentence. Even for someone like Putin, it seems as though it would never get to that point. So with that, I hope that addresses that fairly well. Good question, though. And with that, we are on to the next poll.
All right. And up next, the second poll says, will the recent ICC arrest warrant sway Xi Jinping's meeting with Putin next week? And it was officially scheduled for next week, but that was before the arrest warrant news came out. So it looks like, and 64% said no, Xi and Putin are of the same type. 17% said he might be apprehensive, 9% said unsure, and 11% said yes, Xi will be maybe canceling the meeting. And I have to say, I agree with the 64%. Xi and Putin are definitely of the same type. And to be quite honest, while I agree with issuing an arrest warrant for Putin, I kind of find the actions of the ICC to be a little bit hypocritical. We can't discuss it on the stream because YouTube doesn't like it, but China has engaged in some very questionable activities in their own country, which would probably warrant an arrest warrant for Xi Jinping as well, but that hasn't been done for some reason. But Enforcer, what say you?
I would say it's not going to change the meeting that they're going to have, because if Putin visits China, obviously they're not going to sit there and set him up and then arrest him. You know, because the Chinese don't really care what the ICC thinks. They're going to do whatever they want. And if Xi goes to Russia, it's not like he's going to go sit there and go, Pooh Bear does not meet with convicted felons, and then sit there and not show up. You know, this meeting will go on. That may as well have no impact on it, in my opinion. And we'll see if that actually does have an impact on it. However, I have to agree with Matthew heavily. Matthew has a great point in saying that what the Chinese are doing these days, hell, the people in the Chinese government, the Chinese Communist Party, really all of the party members, should have warrants out for their arrest, considering the crimes they're committing domestically in their own country. And of course, we can't talk about that a lot, because YouTube doesn't really like it when we point that out. And, you know, there was a great movie made by Disney, actually. I would love to talk about it. It was the movie Mulan. Y'all may have seen the live-action remake lately, and they actually filmed that video, I think they said something like 5 miles away from and since we can't really say the actual wordage of what it is, a summer camp that was out there in Western China. So that's actually kind of a little interesting to hear about, and kind of tells you how prevalent that is, considering out of all the places they could have gone, that's as far away as they got from one. You know, it's like that's a little bizarre. But anyways, moving back to that, it is a little weird that they haven't put out an arrest warrant for anything like that, because if they're about crimes against humanity and holding people accountable for them, why wouldn't they hold the people accountable in China that are committing crimes against humanity against a whole bunch of people? And of course, we can't go into great detail. I hate to say that every single time, because I would love to really just take off and start talking about that, but we don't want our show to end, because YouTube will probably come down and stamp their boot on us if we talk about it, and then we'll be gone, and we won't even be able to talk about the Ukraine war. So with that, I hope that does address that poll the best we can without getting the X, and with that, we are on to the next one.
All right, and the third poll says the U.S. flew a Global Hawk drone into the Black Sea last night, and Russia did not react. And what are your thoughts? 35% said Russia was just bluffing about it. 20% said, was it the same route? 18% said unsure, and 27% said, I thought the USA was supposed to be reassessing. And on this one, I gotta say, I'm gonna fall within the 20%, and was it the same route? Because the first drone, the MQ-9, we're not really sure exactly where that drone flew when it was shot down. There are some estimates, but nothing in particular, which makes me a little bit wary of where the drone was actually going. And I'd like the USA to be a little bit more transparent about that, because that could provide some more context. But Enforcer, what say you?
I would say we can't really tell. Matthew's got a great point there, and we actually talked about this a little bit before stream. And I've actually seen some interesting things. Someone out there claims that they know exactly where the drone flew, and they're saying that the Global Hawk's taking the exact same path. There's no way to verify that, though, because there's been no actual information that came out about where the original drone flew. And if someone somehow did get that information, there needs to be an inquiry held in the United States Air Force to find out who leaked that information, because right now that should be classified. And I believe it's important for it to remain classified, at least for the short while. Moving on from that, however, we don't really know if it is taking the same flight path or not. Honestly, I think that it shouldn't be taking the same flight path. It should be taking a flight path, from what we understand yesterday, that should be far closer, and also escorted by fighter aircraft to send a message. You see, because it's not really, at this point, I would say that the drone missions aren't really about reconnaissance gathering. Our satellites can do that in the meantime. It's about sending a message. And I would say that the best message to send is that we will not back down, we will escalate, and the Russians have to be the ones to back down, especially if we were in international airspace. There is nothing we did wrong, there was nothing we did that was against the law, so there's no point to follow the same flight path and play it safe, or to play it even safer, and then take a flight path that is even further back than the original one. I do not believe at all in letting the Russians, which is a country that is insignificant in every single regard, bully the United States as to what it can and cannot do in international waters and international airspace. That is outrageous. That is absolutely silly. And I think it sets a bad precedent for us in Eastern Europe, and shows that we may be a little weak. And we can't really stand up against we don't really have the muster to stand up against the Russians. It's not the fact that we cannot. We certainly can. It's just that for some reason we lack the spirit to do it. So with that, I hope that addresses that fairly well. I hope it addresses the poll, in my opinion. And with that, we are on to the next one, if we have one.
All right, and that was our last poll, but real quick, I see some folks saying that you could track the MQ-9 Reaper that was shot down on flight radar, and I don't think that was the case, because that drone in particular did not have a transponder that was turned on, and we don't really know where it was. So if y'all had some way to track it, let me know, because I haven't known about that. One thing I do find interesting is that drone, to my knowledge, wasn't able to be tracked, but yet we can track the Global Hawk on Flight Radar 24, which has an active transponder. Seems kind of a little bit suspicious. I'm not sure why we would be letting one drone be tracked and the other one not, since they're all on surveillance missions. I don't know why the first one would have been classified. But Enforcer, do you have any comment on that?
I would have to say, from what we've understood and what we've talked about, up until this point, we've been told that that drone did not have a transponder on it, so it could not be shown on flight radar. We actually had a conversation with someone today on Twitter and talked to them about it, and from what we were told, the source that said where the drone exactly flew did not have transponder information to show where it flew on flight radar. They got that information from some undisclosed force in the U.S. Air Force that's leaking classified information information to them, which sounds a little bit questionable,
Yeah.
to say the least.
That would be very risky to leak information like that. I really doubt they'd leak that to a YouTuber.
Yeah, because we get information from the Ukrainian army occasionally from units on the front lines, and I get that on WhatsApp. But none of them share classified information. They share stuff that is safe to share with me. They don't sit there and go, hey, by the way, here's our offensive plans for the next few months. They do not do that. And I'd highly doubt that someone in the U.S. Air Force, and we hold our security standards way higher than just about anyone else in the world, because it seems like what you brushed your teeth with this morning is classified information in the U.S. military these days. That would make no sense for someone to just reach out to a YouTuber, regardless of how big they are, and go, hey, here's the exact flight path it took. I mean, it's a little, in my opinion, it's a little questionable to me. But, who knows? Anyways, I also saw someone say this, and I have to address this one real quick. I actually saw someone say that the U.S. is not going to take any aggressive moves as long as there is a certain parameter in the government. I'm not going to say what the parameter is, but I will say this. The idea of moving the drone's flight path further away, at least in the public statement from where it originally was, is most likely a decision that's been made on the advisement of the generals in charge of the U.S. Air Force and the U.S. military as a whole, your chief of staff, such things like that. That decision was most likely being made by their advisement. I would more so say that we should ask the question, why is the government taking such weak advice, in my opinion, and such de-escalatory advice, especially when there's no point for us to de-escalate if everything we were doing was in the clear. That doesn't make much sense to me. And we've been doing that a decent amount over the past, I would say, 6-7 years. It seems as though the United States is always taking the back foot whenever we start to get into a confrontation with someone, like we don't understand that we are at a advantage over our rivals in every single term except for the nuclear term, which is a fair level on everyone's mark. So I don't understand why we're taking a less aggressive approach, especially considering that it was our asset that was destroyed. It was our drone. The Su-27, from what we understood, could have flied back to its base with minor or moderate damage. Our drone is in the middle of the sea right now being recovered by the Russians, and if that is a sign of anything, it's a sign we should be far more aggressive with our approach to our drones flying through the Black Sea within the realms of international law. That would be my opinion on how to deal with the situation. But maybe I'll say this though. I'll give credit, because while I'm sitting here and kind of being critical of the decision that's been made right now, maybe they have some kind of information that I do not have, and the decision was made on that level. I still don't understand where the logic's coming from, but maybe if I got that information, maybe I would kind of understand it a little bit. I don't know. Anyways, with that, I hope we addressed that well. Once again, revisiting it. And with that, we are on into the question. So what do we got, Matthew?
All right. And the very first super chat we have is from Enforcer for President, who puts in a whopping $200 donation. And thank you very much for that support. Yes, indeed. And Enforcer for President says, long live the LSA, and take one from the chat and buy some food, please.
And I gotta thank you. I gotta thank you so much for the support, Enforcer for President. I have to agree. Long live the Lee Spring Army. And if you all agree with Enforcer for President, put down long live the Lee Spring Army in the live chat. Because I have to say, it would be nice to see how many of y'all are LSA members. And of course, if you are a LSA member, you just have to think you are. You don't have to support the channel. You don't really have to do anything. You just kind of have to have been subscribed to the channel even just tonight, and say you're a member of the LSA. So put down a long live the LSA if you consider yourself a member of the Lee Spring Army. And also, thank you so much once again for the support, Enforcer for President. We will make sure to buy us some food. We actually got pizza tonight for one of the first times in a while, and it was really good, actually. I was very surprised with the quality.
Yes, I love the pizza.
Pizza. I love the pizza. And so with that, we will make sure to get some more food. We don't want to get obese or anything, but we will make sure to get more. And so with that, thank you so much once again. I hope we addressed that fairly well. And let's take one from the live chat, of course, courtesy of Enforcer for President.
All right, and the one from the live chat goes to Mental, who says, when will the Ukrainian counteroffensive commence?
The Ukrainian counteroffensive, this has been a question that's been asked many times. And of course, I'm going to say this because I've been saying this answer somewhat quicker as the questions have come in about this. and I have to say this now because I feel like I may be there's always a chance of being wrong, and I don't want to sit there and have people thinking that they can put my words in the bank and say this is exactly what's going to happen. We've been right many times, we've been wrong sometimes as well, so I don't want anyone to think that this is it, this is the key answer. But based off of what we're seeing and the information that we have and the weather conditions that are prevailing right now and when these weather conditions will cease, it appears that the best chance for the Ukrainians to conduct a successful counteroffensive, weather permitting, would be mid-April to late May. That's when the ground will be dry, the weather will be tolerable, and in Ukraine, the summers don't get incredibly hot, but at the same time, you don't want to fight in hot weather. The summers are usually a time of lesser activity. It's more of the spring and the fall that, well, and that's I'm gonna have to actually change that statement for Eastern Europe. It is the late spring and early fall that are the areas of great activity because the weather is just perfect. It's right in the spring, it's right after the Rasputitsa, so there's really no rainy season there anymore. The ground's dry, everything's perfect for an offensive. And in the early fall, the temperatures are starting to cool down. The Rasputitsa hasn't arrived yet at that time of year, so once again, it becomes a perfect chance to conduct counteroffensives. And we saw that last year's counteroffensive in Balaklia fell within that early fall window, and so it seems as though the Ukrainians may be shooting for these seasonal windows. So I would say somewhere in between mid-April and late May. But of course, keep that and we'll take that as a grain of salt. Take it with a grain of salt because
take that as a grain of salt.
Take that as a grain of salt. Thank you. It takes one grain, but take it with a grain of salt because once again, crystal balling is something that I don't really like to do a lot because there's so many things that happen per day, and and a lot of us, and even when I put out the news, it seems as though it's a linear picture going on out there. One event leads to another, but it is a web of events. One thing leads to this thing leads to 6 other things. Those 6 other things lead to 68 other things that affected the original thing. About 20 of them did, and so it's very difficult to say that would happen in that time frame, but that seems to be the most likely one if we're just talking about the weather alone. And so with that, I hope that answers that question fairly well. And with that, we are on to the next one. But thank you so much once again, and First for President, for the massive amount of support in sponsoring that live chat.
All right, and up next, we have a $100 donation from none other than Mob Corleone 352. And thank you very much for that support. And sadly, I think they got for the night already, but hopefully you'll hear this tomorrow. And they say, I have 1st Cavalry patches my late father actually wore in Vietnam. I would be honored if you guys treasured them.
And I thank you so much, MOB Corleone, for your first time supporting this channel. Thank you so much for the support. And also, we would treasure those things like no tomorrow because we treasure the 1st Division patch that we've gotten from one of our viewers who will not be named because while he was fine with us mentioning his account name, I want to make sure we don't really mention much at all about him just in case if for some reason it does get tracked to him and then he gets in trouble for it for some reason, but I do thank you for it. We would treasure those greatly. Now if they're already in the mail, we'll be more than happy to receive them. We actually we've actually been having a problem with our P.O. box because it's kind of funny. The packages we've been getting lately are so big they can't actually fit in the P.O. box. So we have to go there and check and see if they've left a slip in the P.O. box and then go into the actual office and then grab the P.O. box. So it's actually pretty funny. That's been happening a lot lately. In fact, that's been happening with all the mail we've gotten recently. But still, we would love to see those 1st Cavalry patches. I actually knew a guy named Bill. I think he's been dead for several years now. But he was actually in Vietnam in the Air Force as a combat electrician, he had wild stories to tell. You would never think that an electrician got that much action. But he always wanted to meet Lieutenant Colonel Hal Moore, who was in charge of I believe it was the first, let me check, 1st Cav patch. Because I believe, if I remember correctly, it's the horse. Yeah, it's the horse. So he was in charge of the 1st Cavalry. I had to double check there to make sure, because for some reason, I'm always getting the 1st Cavalry mixed up with the 7th Cavalry for no reason. Anyways, he always wanted to meet him because he lived in Auburn in Alabama, because he was the guy who was at the Battle of Ai Drang and led the 1st Cavalry through the first major engagement that the U.S. would ever have in Vietnam. I would love to see those patches. I know that Bill, if he was still around, he would have loved to have seen them as well. And I got to thank you so much once again for the support, Corleone. And we would love to have those patches if you are sending them. And so with that, thank you so much once again. I hope we addressed that fairly well. And with that, we are on to the final question of this segment, and then we'll be moving back on into our news.
All right, and the last one goes to Ramo, who puts in a $100 donation, and I'm pretty sure that is the first from Ramo, and thank you very much for that support. And he says, Slava Ukraine.
And thank you so much once again for the support, Ramo. Also, a first-time supporter, and thank you so much for the huge support and helping out the channel. And also, Slava Ukraini. And thank you for helping this channel to keep on running. It means a lot to us. And of course, without y'all support, it wouldn't be possible. And so with that, we're now going to be moving on from this question segment and on into our Northeastern news again and going over the past 24 hours. Over the past 24 hours, we've seen that the front line has had no changes whatsoever in the Northeastern area. Now, moving on into the only video clip we covered in the Northeastern area, we saw that the Ukrainians destroyed a T-90M today. This was the 15th T-90M destroyed. The Russians only have 30 of them, which means that 50% of the most advanced tanks they have that are usable have been destroyed at this point in the war. Here's the clip. You see Ukrainian soldiers looking at the T-90. We can still see that it's smoldering and burning. We can see that its right side track appears to have come undone, and that may have led the crew to bail out. We're looking at it from the engine bay as well. So it appears that it was driving forward. It may have been hit on its left side. And the track came undone. There may have been some damage inside of the compartment as well that forced the crew to bail. But there you go. There's the video again. And it is the 15th T-90M destroyed. Only 30 of them, and now there's only 15 of them. Half of them have now been destroyed since the start of the war. We're now going to be moving on from Kreminna and down into Bakhmut. Bakhmut's been fairly interesting today because we've seen that the Ukrainians have been able to hold the large majority of the land in and around Bakhmut as of the past 24 hours. However, there's been a small advance by the Russians up in the area of Orikovo-Vasilivka, as we can see right here, moving towards the village of Hihorivka. This appears to be down a valley that is near this lake, and it seems as though they may be trying to move to create a larger encirclement. It appears that they may be trying to sweep wide to go behind Chasiv Yar and then get on the highway towards Konstantinivka. That may be a part of a larger plan, but for now, they can't even close the small gap here around Bakhmut, and it appears that the Ukrainians are holding the line as of right now, and the Russians did incur considerable losses today, once again, in the fighting, although they were not able to get anything to show for it. And so showing our first clip farthest in the northeast, in the northern area of Bakhmut, we saw the Su-25 get shot down today, which should be in the casualty report tomorrow. This was spotted near the Berestovoy area that is just north of Bakhmut. Here's the clip. You hear them fire the manpad. You see the soldier over there. We can see the manpad traveling out into the distance. Manpads have an incredibly long range, believe it or not. And we can actually see the hit right there. And this Ukrainian soldier immediately turns into Popeye the Sailor rated R.
Dang. Man's going off.
Тупо в самолет попал.
I mean, like, they would be going off, though, because that was like a $20 million jet they just shot down. Good night, Marion. I hope you have a good night. Now, I don't know what the hell this is, but we hear him cussing again like a sailor. Now, Mandy, I think this is one of those Nickelodeons you used to get in the early 1900s right here, where you paid 5 cents to watch a little flip film thing in the booth.
Oh, yeah.
You know, where you got the lever and you looked through the little peephole and it played a film? Yeah, that's literally what it is. Gosh, that's kind of trippy to look at.
Oh, okay. It took me like 2 seconds to figure out what you meant by Nickelodeon. I was thinking about SpongeBob and...
One second, let me type it in here so that way I can make sure to key in everyone else. Nickelodeon device. Here we go. It's a movie theater thing. All right, so this is the thing. Well, let me just go back to Google Images. I'll show it to y'all. So this is the thing I'm talking about right here. You put in a nickel into the side, and you would look through this little sight thing on the top of the object, and you would crank a little lever, and you would be able to see a select film. It wasn't that long. I think it was like less than a minute long most of the time. But it was like one of the first, I guess you could say, iterations of film that were kind of quick to see. It's actually, I would say, kind of like the first iteration of something like TikTok. But considering that the little videos were so small, I mean, like, they were like less than a minute or even 30 seconds. But still, a very interesting little device that not a lot of people know about, because that's what Nickelodeon, the TV channel, is actually named after, is these Nickelodeon machines that you can see right there.
Paul McDonald said Peep Show Naughty.
I
mean,
I don't think they were those, but anyways, we're now gonna, from what I understood.
Yeah, I think some people are right. I think there was a thing like that back in the day.
Hang on, wait a minute, hang on. Let me take this off screen, because from what I understood, they used to just show short little films. Let's see. Named ancient Greek coin. Let's see, very large. Inspired, where has also been used. History. Project Theater is one of the. Let's see. Although they were characterized, selection of short films. Let's see. So it appears that according to Wikipedia, they were actually just used to show small little, like, funny clips, like vaudeville clips and stuff like that, where people were like getting hit over the head in a comedy routine. But it does go on to say that later on, they were used to show some less than, I guess you could say, moral things in them. So yeah, they actually were used for that, but in their first iteration, which I know about, they weren't used for that. What's interesting, though, Matthew, is that they were regarded as disreputable and dangerous by some civil groups and municipal agencies. Crude, ill-ventilated Nickelodeons with hard wooden seats were outmoded as longer films became common and larger, and more comfortably furnished motion picture theaters were built. So then the movie theater came to be, after the Nickelodeon was the one who kind of crawled, so that way the movie theater could walk.
Shame on them.
Yeah, shame on them, shame on them. Oh, goodness. Oh, man, I get no respect around here. I put a nickel into the machine, and it didn't even show me some skin. Oh, man, I'm telling you. But anyways, we're moving on from that clip, and on into the next one in the area of Pirodny, where we saw a Wagner ammo depot get hit. And we can see the Wagner going into the small little brick hut. And we can see the mortar firing, and we can now see that little Wagner brick house. Oh! We can now see that Wagner brick house blow up. I just saw someone say something, man. I was like, yikes! I was like, that's not good. And so with that's the end of the clip, but you can see the Wagner ammo depot going up in flames right then and there. With that, we're moving on to our next bit of news in the area of Yehidne, where we saw some Ukrainian soldiers hitting Russian positions. And also, thank you, Mark. We'll be getting to that in the question segment. And so, here's the clip. And so, we can see the Ukrainian soldier lining up an RPG at a very close range to a house. Now, I want to ask y'all a question. Have y'all ever seen Hometown Makeover, the show, where they go to towns and they make them over? You're about to see this Ukrainian soldier do a hometown remover, where he looks at a house and he removes the home. So, here's the clip. And an entire 2-bedroom apartment just went up in flames with some Wagner guys inside. Hey! And so he now goes back inside. Man, he sat there. He sat there and came out there like it was the hometown makeover thing. They had that cheap sounding corporate music, and he went, "Wow, look at this apartment. It could use less mahogany and less walls. Let's fix that." That'll be $30,000.
Good as new now.
You see, every single hometown makeover show is the same. You have some guy with a beard and a woman with short hair, and they go around and they paint every house white and gray. Every single time. Every single hometown makeover show is like that. But anyways, that's the end of that clip. Not taking a shot at hometown makeover shows or anything.
Somebody's about to get super offended about
someone's
this.
about
I
to
know
get
it.
super offended about that. Not taking a shot at hometown makeover shows or anything. It's just that you would think that one of them would eventually be different and maybe do houses in like a Victorian style or something. But all of them do the houses in the exact same style that will probably be out of fashion in like 5 years. But anyways, with that, we're now moving on from this little clip, very interesting, and on into our next one, further south in Bakhmut, where we saw the Battle of Bakhmut continuing from the eyes of the Special Operations Forces. So we hear that dog growling. And I don't know if there's music. Oh, yep, I was right. Right on the moment. Right on the mark. But you now see them driving past some explosions. Sort of some destroyed vehicles. And man, these guys are booking it. You see them moving onto a paved road, taking a right turn. You now see them looking through night vision. M. left for below, he said, I am super offended. And so with that, that's the end of the clip, but a huge credit to the special forces who are in Bakhmut and still giving the Russians one hell of a time. We're now going to be moving a little bit further behind the lines and into the area of Khromove, where we saw the Ukrainian soldiers trying to move across the destroyed bridge we saw yesterday. We see them running up to the destroyed bridge and moving over to the side of it because it appears that they may have been able to make a crossing over here. And they have been able to. We can now see the bridge completely destroyed. We now see them crossing the river. I see a lot of people making the makeover jokes about the houses. You know, like, I'm gonna paint one like a Buzzweiser can to keep neighbors away. Let's see, who said that? Oh, let me go find them. Bobo, wait a minute, no, I don't think it was. Oh yeah, 907 Pike, Alaska said that.
Drone.
We now see one of them saying that there's a drone. As he slips for a second, he gets back up, and they've now made it to the other side of the bridge and are going under a heating pipe, it seems. And so with that, that's the end of the clip. And I was just thinking, Matthew, about that whole like hometown makeover thing and all that. Someone saying, "Hey kids, you know, this house looks real nice and all now that we've remade it, but y'all want to know how to make it affordable and keep the property prices down?" let's go out to the back.
Go in the backyard and lit all the shots ring out.
And meanwhile, on like what the hell is the Zillow? You just see the property values dropping with every gunshot. You just hear minus 20,000, minus 20,000, minus 20,000, and it's like, yay guys, well we're keeping the property values low. Anyways, with that, we're now going to be moving on from this video in Bakhmut and on further back behind the lines, where we saw some Ukrainian helicopters flying out of the town of Bakhmut after firing off their rockets. I'm going to have to mute that. But when you see an outhouse right here, and in the distance, we're about to see the Ukrainians flying by after they took a huge dump on Russian forces. And look at them go. There goes the first one, and I'm sure it'll be followed by a second one right there. Call them out. Call them out.
Peter, the horse is here. Peter,
I don't know why, I just felt like doing that for some reason.
Peter, the horse is here.
But with that, we're now moving on from that little clip in Bakhmut and down into the southern flank of Bakhmut, where we saw the Georgian Legion still there and still operating. And Fighting Finn just said minus 300 social credit. Oh, come on, man. Come on. But anyways, here's the clip. What's up, Beijing? We now see him aiming his
What's up,
RPG.
war criminal?
See him fire his
that's
RPG.
some backblast out of that.
Yeah, man, the backblast is pretty rough.
Man, he's acting a little shaken from that.
Yeah, he's like, oh, man, that was loud. He's probably, his ears are ringing. He's probably like, oh, man, that's loud. frequency harmonic, to answer that question, we're not afraid of China per se. We're more afraid of YouTube because YouTube comes down on people who say certain things about certain stuff, like what you're talking about. So we really can't talk about it at all unless if we want to get deplatformed, demonetized, or thrown off YouTube. So that's why we're not really talking about it too much. I want to make that clear. We now see him firing his rifle into the distance. And that's the end of the clip. But still, fairly neat to see that this guy is out there, a part of the Georgian Legion, still keeping up the fight. We're now going to be moving on out of Bakhmut and on into the area of actually past Konstantinivka, since we already saw that clip area, and down to the area of Yablunivka. Let me make sure I got that right. Where we saw these Oshkosh armored cars. These have never been announced to have been delivered to Ukraine, but we're seeing them now. They are the MATVs, which are honestly one of the coolest looking MRAPs. So here's the clip. We see some Humvees, more Humvees, a lot of Humvees, and then we see the little Oshkosh armored cars right there. And I say they're little, but they're like 3 times the size of a Humvee. And we see that there's actually a massive amount of them. There's dozens of them.
Wow, do they have enough? Send more.
Please send more. And so with that, that's the end of the clip. And to show y'all a real picture of one of these things in Oshkosh,
Big gosh.
This is what it looks like. That's it right there.
It's basically like the sporty MRAP, I guess you could say.
Peter, the MRAP's here.
But anyways,
I'd be fine with that.
I like this thing. This thing looks pretty cool. I also like it in green. Because I'm a little bit of a snob. I like mine in good colors, and I think that the green one is probably better looking than the tan one. Really, I got to be honest with you. So with that, we're now going to be moving on from that interesting little clip and on into our next bit of news in the Donetsk area near Avdiivka, where we saw some Ukrainian soldiers sitting around and biding their time in the area. And so here's the clip. Check it out.
Видосик на память. Зашли
We see that they have a little cat down there. It's a very cute cat.
за Авдеевкой. Вот товарищ, с которым я служу. Кот какой у нас красивый.
You see the cat just chilling.
Новые позиции, блядь.
We see they threw him a cigarette. The cat's gonna be like, oh, блядь, thank you.
Говорят, охуенные позиции, блядь. Вот такие, блядь. Каждый день по 13 трехсотых, блядь. 200-х, 300-х, блядь.
Mr. Chicago said, no voice, hey! And yeah, I guess it's no. I guess it's no, suppose. I like the kitten. It's cute. And so with that, that's the end of the clip. We're now moving on from Avdiivka. There's not really much more to report from that area. And down into Marinka, where we also saw some tanks in action in the Marinka area. We don't know whose these really are, but nonetheless, here's the clip. We're going to skip past the geolocation. We can see the tank right there. We'll see if we can get the identifying markers on it. Is it Ukrainian? Is it Russian? We can't really tell right now. Because they say it's a BTR-80 supporting the tank, which would make us think that it is Russian. However, the thing is that the Ukrainians now use BTR-80s because they've captured an extensive amount of them from the Russians. We now see the tank firing forward into the abandoned and destroyed buildings in front of it. You see it continuing to fire, the BTR-80 also firing as well. And I would have to say, I think this may actually be a Russian tank, because that looks more like a Z than a cross. So this may be the Russians in the Marinka area. With that, that's the end of that clip. But once again, giving you a little bit of a look at the ongoing battle in the middle of the destroyed town of Marinka. We're now moving on to our next clip, where we saw the Ukrainian soldiers firing off an RPG at Russian positions in the town as well today. And so here's that clip. When you see that the RPG actually almost came out of the tube right there. See him running forward with it. And when he gets out there, he's like, oh, wait a minute. So he goes back in the building. He starts adjusting it, gets back out there, fires it, and then he comes back in the building.
Це дітка В'єтнам! Де заряд, блядь?
Now see them moving back in, taking a rest on the couch with their RPG, reloading it.
Тільки цей, не нахиляй, воно вискакує.
Out of all of
Чуть-чуть
Marinka, there's
поправляй.
just only one intact couch now. They're very lucky to have that couch.
Це здання. Готов?
You now see them moving back out there to fire off the next RPG round. You hear a bullet bounce off the ground nearby to him.
В'єтнам! В'єтнам, Ваня! Давай! Давай, вийшов, я в'їбав високочі.
You now see him fire again, run back in the building. And
I got a question for you real quick.
Yes.
Do you know what you call it when a star blows up in spectacular fashion?
What? What do you call them, Matthew?
A supernova plus.
I don't get it.
Do you see the watermark?
Oh!
That joke fell flat as hell.
Dude, that
That
fell.
was, what do you call a joke that falls flat in spectacular fashion?
The plains of Ukraine. That's the Russian army.
What?
The Russian army on the plains of Ukraine. I didn't think that one out. I just had that response lined up already. But anyways, with that, we're now going to be moving on out of Marinka, where we see the battle still going on, and down into the area of Volodar, in the area of Pivlivka, where we saw a VAB drive-by. Oh, it's the same song! We're muting it. And we can see the VAB coming up, drifting through the fields. It is a very muddy time of year again. I gotta
That
say,
looks a little funky.
I gotta say though, I like those VABs because they look funky. I mean, they look
It's
extra.
like the
funky.
ducks.
Yeah, the duck, le duck. Like if I show you an AMX, World War II AMX tanks, or the Samoa, the Suma, I mean, Suma S35. This is le duck. We designed a tank that look like a dog.
Oh. French design is always top tier. Oh.
We go into World War II with something that looks like this. It's very bad. We will lose war in 1 month. But anyways, we're now going to be moving on from this, and I'm just kidding for my French viewers. I'm just playing with y'all. Y'all did a great job. It's just that y'all kind of lost France there for a little bit. But anyways, we're now going to be moving on into our next bit of news further down the line in the area of Notropetriakivka, where we saw the Ukrainians destroy a Tunguska, which are fairly expensive and kind of a little hard to get. So here's the clip. Wait a minute, let me just go back. Here, here we can see the Tunguska in its natural habitat. But of course, there's a predator that shall feed upon it. The drone. DJI Mavics are one of the most common species of drone aircraft that pursue and hunt the Tunguska. It appears that the Tunguska has gotten away with a scratch, but will come back with more vigor than before. But of course, the Mavic is very virulent and will pursue the Tunguska until its very end. And so with that, we're now going to be moving on from that clip where we saw the drone hit the Tunguska and then the Tunguska ran away like, and then ran off. So that we're now moving on into Molinivka, where we saw the 40th Separate Brigade destroying some Russian positions.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah. Here we can hear the trap music that is synonymous with the mating call of the Ukrainian drone. It is trying to find a mate, and it appears that it may have found a match. An explosion in the tree line shows the chemistry between the fire and the gunpowder on the outside of the vehicle. We can now see a great explosion as the vehicle spreads its spores across the land to try and make sure that it will survive no longer.
Can I have the trap music again, please?
Let's get some trap up in here.
Oh, yeah, Messiah. What is up with this music these days? I don't understand it.
I don't know, man. I just work here. But we can see the vehicles on fire in the tree line. And it looks like the Russians are getting very toasty down there. As sudden death said, oopsie daisy. Oh, man. Man, can we get a yeehaw for this? Yeah, blow out everyone's eardrums.
Hey, it came through all the way, too.
Yeah, it did. I was like, yeah. And it peaked, too. It almost went out. It peaked. And we can see another rocket fire in the tree line. And let's just get some more trap remix again, just one more time. Oh, yeah. Oh,
Damn, that dude has a mic about like mine. Damn. It's like peeking out, sounds all muffled and grumbly.
Oh, man. Yeah, we can see that speaking of muffled and gruffled, the Russians have really been muffled and gruffled in that tree line. Blade.
Oh, something went off right there in the smoke.
A little bit of a accidental discharge bleed. Oh, good lord, it's hitting the other one. It caught the other one on fire. Oh, collateral. Let's go. That was great. The other Russian vehicle fired off its rocket and got collateral on another one. That's sweet. There's nothing sweeter than the Russians screwing their own selves over. With that, we're now moving on from that incredible clip shown by the 40th Separate Brigade and on down into the area of Tokmak, or the general area, where we saw a Russian ammo cache get hit. And sadly, this wasn't very cash money for the Russians, but it was very cash for the Ukrainians because they were able to find it. So here's the clip. Same song. In the year 2077, what makes someone a criminal? Getting caught. You actually can see that we're looking at the tree line at the ammo cache. You see the truck down there?
That's a hell of an ammo cache.
Yeah, and it looks like they're cashing out. It's really cashing out.
You know, when I look at this ammo cache, it makes me wonder. Damn, son, where'd you find this?
You know, whenever I look at this cache, Matthew, I'm just wondering if there was a guy named Johnny down there, and if there was, does that make this a Johnny cache?
I mean, it is the burning ring of fire. I guess you could qualify that.
But, oh man, this thing's blowing up. Like, badly. Everything's blowing up everywhere now. Everything's on fire. We can even see the little explosion in the distance right there. Very nice. And so with that, that's the end of that clip. Very great to see that they're still knocking out ammunition that the Russians desperately need at this point in the war. And with that, we've covered all of the news, top to bottom, north to south, east to west, in the war in Ukraine today. And so with that, it's now time for us to move to Kyiv to cover the speech from President Volodymyr Zelensky here on day 387 of the war in Ukraine. And so, without further ado, here is the speech.
Дорогі українці, українки, рік тому російські військові вчинили один з найстрашніших злочинів цієї війни. Російські бомби зруйнували театр в Маріуполі, будівлю, яка використовувалась як укриття. Там були жінки з дітьми, вагітні, літні люди. Цивільний об'єкт, свідомо зруйнований окупантом. Ми досі не знаємо точної кількості загиблих. Сотні людей, тисяча. Написи «Діти» поряд з будівлею однозначно свідчили про те, хто став мішенню для Росії. Однією з багатьох таких мішеней. За кожну з них держава зло відповідатиме. Всередині березня минулого року окупант ще був на півночі нашої держави. Багато де на Харківщині. Ворог мав зовсім інші позиції на півдні, але вже тоді ми почали їх гнати. Настане день, і ми звільнимо Маріуполь. Увесь наш південь, увесь наш схід. Так само, як ми звільняли інші наші міста. Настане день, і буде створено трибунал, який повертатиме справедливість нашому народу. Трибунал, який покарає цього агресора так само, як були покарані агресори минулого. Настане день, і усі винуватці воєнних злочинів проти українців опиняться
Hey, Enforcer, you still around?
Кримінального суду та
I'm
національного.
getting reports this is yesterday's speech.
Yesterday's? Oh,
That's
what?
what
He
I'm
didn't
told.
upload one today. I was sitting there thinking, I was like, wow, same background and everything, keeping consistent here. And I was starting to look over here into the live chat at what everyone was saying. But, yeah, believe it or not, everyone, apparently this is yesterday's speech. So, Well, that rounds out Zelensky's speech here on day 387 of the news of the war in Ukraine, and I thank you all so much for watching the news segment. We're about to be moving into the question segment, where we're going to answer all of the super chats that we've received in between the last question segment and this one, and we're also going to be addressing as many live chats as possible. But before some of y'all get off, after tonight's news is rounded out, I want to thank you all so much once again for watching. If y'all could, make sure to subscribe and hit the like button, as that helps this channel to reach out to even more people, and it helps the Lee Spring Army and the Enforcer channel to continue to grow and spread the news of what we cover each and every day. We run the stream 6 days a week at 10 p.m. Eastern Time every single day except for Monday. And of course, make sure to go to enforcerstore.com as well and get yourself some Amerifatty merch before it's out of style. And you might want to buy a size larger than normal, because after all, it is an Amerifatty, and what is this place without being a joke? You know, it's all a joke. But anyways, with that, I hope we addressed everything fairly well with the news, and it's now time for us to get on into tonight's polls. And so with that, what do we have? What happened? What do we have, Mandy?
What are you, nervous or something? Come on, Fatty, do some push-ups.
I was supposed to be running. I was supposed to be running his speech, man. I don't know why. It was there, and now it's not, and the water supply, and the Great Bell. But what happened? Anyways, let's get on into the polls.
All right, and we have 4 polls to address, and the very first one says, do you think the USA should be more transparent regarding non-sensitive military operations? And it looks like 38% said no, staying secretive is fine, 23% said on a very limited basis, and 30% said yes, more transparency is needed, while 9% said unsure. And on this one, I have to say, it seems like the U.S. is unnecessarily classifying information that should be public. I understand the need for secrecy in military operations. It's always important to maintain OPSEC. But then again, we can't classify every single detail to where the American public is in, I guess, the complete dark as to what's going on. For example, I don't know why the MQ-9 Reaper's drone flight isn't being published by the U.S. military. People are taking guesses at it, and we're getting a lot of conflicting reports of where it was. And unless the U.S. has something to hide, why isn't that being released? Shouldn't be classified. But Enforcer, what say you?
Look, listen, here's the deal. Listen, we're going to sit there and we're not going to sit there and reread the line. Please read the line. I forgot it.
Oh, wait, for real?
Yeah, for real.
Oh. All right, then. The line was, do you think the U.S. should be more transparent regarding non-sensitive military operations?
Look, here's the deal. You gotta try and remember it this time. With the drone thing, it doesn't have to be that secret. Listen, look, here's the deal. It doesn't have to be that secret. It can just be the way it's supposed to be. Getting past trying to imitate someone out there. I would have to say my honest answer to this would have to be too much stuff is getting classified that should just be common knowledge, because there's a lot of people in the public who would like to have a good understanding of what's going on. So when you sit there and say something like, our drone was taken down over the Black Sea, well, what's happened to it? That's classified. It's like, why not say something like, well, we blew up the computer system, or we've wiped the system, so there's nothing they can get off of it, so everything's fine. Why not say something like that to the public? Because it's not like there is some information that is sensitive. That information is not sensitive, because if the Russians find out that it got blown up or the memory was wiped, it's not like that's going to give them any way to counter that system. There's no way to counter that. If you're able to wipe it or self-destruct it, it's not like they can sit there and go, oh, now it's time for us to design a device that can, for some reason, undetonate an explosive and then put everything back together. That's not going to happen. So, you know, honestly, this whole classified thing pisses me off. A lot of y'all know that this is like a whole joke that's been going on for decades. But you can ask the U.S. government, how many aircraft carriers do we have? That's classified. But it's literally public knowledge. Yes, but I'm not privy to answer that question right now. Okay, well, Who's the admiral of the 7th Fleet? That's classified. Why? You can pull that up on the Navy's website. Well, of course, we're not privy to answer that information. It may pose a security risk. That's almost how we do everything these days. And it annoys me a little too much because there are things, of course, that have to be classified for national security reasons. But some things like what's happened to our drone, that doesn't really need to be classified. So with that, I hope... Go ahead.
It's like what could potentially be, damning to the United States to say, yeah, we remotely wiped the memory of the drone, but we didn't blow it up. How would that harm the national security of the United States to let us know that? That wouldn't harm it whatsoever. It's just a way to avoid responsibility, and that way the journalists can't answer or ask questions that might make the military look incompetent. They're trying to avoid questions like that.
And that's a good point. And also, Hoodoo Texas brought up something that kind of asked to. He said, who said it was blown up or wiped? Look at what happened with Gary Powers in the U-2 incident. Well, with the U-2 incident, the Soviets shot down the U-2 with Gary Powers in it, and then we said, oh, it's fine because he blew up the cockpit with a detonator inside of it, and also he took a cyanide pill, so it's fine. And then the Soviets said, oh, we have the aircraft intact on the ground, which they actually did, and we also have the pilot alive. He didn't kill himself. And then we were like, whoops. We literally just flat out lied on that one. We didn't even say that's classified about any of that. But anyways, well, actually, we kind of did. We did say it was classified at the start when it was shot down. We said it was a weather balloon. Kind of sounds a little similar to something else. But and then after the Soviets said they recovered the aircraft, we said, well, actually, the guy blew it up and he also took a suicide, like he took a cyanide or something like that. And then they came out and said, we got the aircraft intact and showed proof. And then they also said they got the pilot alive. And then we're like, well, we really screwed up now. And that was a huge embarrassment for the United States. A huge one. Huge, nothing like it. Massive, absolutely massive.
And also, I saw somebody else say, a couple people say in the chat, well, they did say it was wiped. That is true. They did say that. But when reporters asked questions about the details, they wouldn't answer any more questions except for it was wiped. And there's no reason not to answer any other questions. They weren't being asked to reveal like the equipment on board the drone. They weren't being asked to reveal what the drone had gathered. It was nothing like that. It was just simply, are the secrets protected? The people want to know, is the military protecting our secrets? And they wouldn't answer that question in any detail.
And one has to remember that there are things that have to remain classified, like the technological capabilities of the drone, things about the F-22, for example, like its radar, its computer systems, the pilot's helmet itself, things like that you can get a little bit of surface information on, but the inner workings of it have to remain classified to maintain national security. Things like what is the fate of our aircraft, that isn't classified. That just is what it is. That's like the United States getting in a war, for example, the Gulf War, and then when a news reporter asks, so how is the ground war going? They go, that's classified. You wouldn't hear that.
Oh, so cool.
Yeah. Oh, we sound so cool saying it's classified. We're mightier than thou and know a little bit extra, so we can't say anything to anyone. Back in the day, back when the Gulf War was going on, Schwarzkopf would tell up till the moment of just about 48 hours up until the point they were in at the moment that press briefing was given. And in fact, sometimes he would actually be talking about things they were doing on the front line then. And I mean, hell, that never violated any sort of classified protocols or put anyone at risk in the U.S. military. So why in the world do we have to sit there and say something like that about this drone today? Because back in the 90s, the military and the government was a whole lot more transparent about what was happening in the Gulf War, an actual war, instead of what happened to our drone that was downed by a Russian jet in the middle of the Black Sea from what we understand to be international waters. So with that, I hope that does address that fairly well, in my opinion. And with that, we are on to the next one.
All right, and the next one is classified, but I can assure you that it was worded really well, and it was very well answered. But moving on to the second one anyway, we're going to declassify it as we speak. It says, today, Russia began sending out military conscription notices to 400,000 Russian citizens, and what are your thoughts? 57% said it's a continuous mobilization, 41% said the second mobilization is here now, and 3% said unsure. And I don't think this is the second mobilization, at least not formally yet. I think this is simply a continuous mobilization to replace all the eliminated troops that have been thrown into the meat grinder and have come out the other side not completely whole. So I'm with the 57%. But Enforcer, what say you?
I would also have to be with the 57% that that's not really shocking, at least from what we've heard or understand, because it seems as though that a partial mobilization of 300,000 has now turned into a partial mobilization of an unlimited number until they stop needing more soldiers. So with that, I hope that addresses that poll fairly well, and we are on to the next one.
All right, and real quick, let me grab one thing from the live chat. There we go. And the next one says, Turkey has issued a statement calling Russia's annexation of Crimea illegal and supports Ukraine. And what are your thoughts? 73% said that's very good for Turkey to say. 3% said unsure. 12% said, I can't figure Turkey out. And 12% said Turkey says it for selfish reasons. Excuse me. I'm just stumbling all the way through that one. But I would say that's definitely very good for Turkey to say. But I'm also kind of leaning toward the option, I really can't figure Turkey out. As we always say, it's a Turkey thing. We really don't know what the logic was for saying that now, but they have said it, and it is good that they support Ukraine, or at least on paper they do. But Enforcer, what say you?
The Turks support Ukraine, and this is something that they actually do support, is the Ukrainian government and the Ukrainian nation, because the Ukrainians may become a considerable part of Turkey's economic sphere in the future, and one of the important ways to maintain that growth would be for the Ukrainians to control Crimea. So it is within their interest, it is selfish of them in a way to say that the Ukrainians should control Crimea, but at the same time, everyone's kind of selfish in a way, because think about it. Is anyone really well, everyone that's supporting Ukraine isn't doing it just for the hell of it or the nicety of it. They're doing it because there is something to benefit. The Polish support Ukraine because they don't want another Russian puppet state right on their border. They just want Belarus to be the only one. The Romanians are supporting Ukraine for the same reason. The Moldovans, they're kind of on the fence because of Transnistria, but they would support Ukraine otherwise. The United States supports Ukraine because we don't want the Black Sea Fleet in Crimea anymore. The United Kingdom supports Ukraine because they also don't want the Black Sea Fleet in Crimea anymore, and they also want to grow the NATO alliance and have a stronger alliance. The same with France, same with Germany. And then, of course, a lot of people are looking at the economic concerns involved. How much extra money and how good of an economy can the Ukrainians have in the future if they're a part of our economic partnerships and groups? There's a lot of questions like that involved, and that's why I don't really want to say the Turks are selfish in doing that, because if a country did not see itself getting anything out of this, they wouldn't be supporting Ukraine. And you can see, and this is more than true, because you can see that the countries that border Russia or are the closest to being affected by this war give the most proportionally, like the Baltic states. Like, hell, I think if I remember correctly, it was either Estonia or Lithuania that gave their entire artillery force to Ukraine in support of the war effort. I think it was Estonia that gave all of their M777s to Ukraine, and they border Russia. So they're seeing massive impacts to them in the future, and it's in their major interests to support the Ukrainians. Same with the Polish. And you can see that the further away countries get, except for the United States, that's the exception. The further away you get from Ukraine itself, the less support comes to Ukraine, at least in proportion to a nation's size and what they have in their arsenal. But the closer you get, the more support is being given, because these countries understand that it's going to implicate them directly if the war doesn't go in Ukraine's favor. So I don't really want to say they're selfish, but then again, Turkey does Turkey things outside of this one category and everything else, so they are selfish for the most part and do things that only benefit them, and if they screw NATO, then they go whatever. So I would say that it isn't really that crazy to think that they do support them through and through, because they have their own strategic interests to do so. So with that, I hope that does address that fairly well, and we are on to the next one.
And real quick, before we move on to our last poll, I want to point something out that I saw in the live chat. I saw Mark Slava Ukraine say he saw a geolocation of the drone, and he's referring to the MQ-9 that was shot down. He says, from the drone picture, it's showing what seems to be Crimea, which would mean it was flying much closer to Crimea than what the U.S. implied. And Mark, I haven't brought that up yet because I haven't confirmed the source of it, but I saw that as well. And if it was flying that close to Crimea as it appears it was in that photo that we haven't been able to confirm yet, but I'm still looking at it, that would change the context of the situation entirely, and that might explain why the U.S. is suddenly reassessing its drone routes, because apparently it might have been flying way too close to the Russians. And we know that Crimea is Ukraine's. It has always been Ukraine's, and Russia illegally annexed it, but they are there nonetheless. So if we flew that drone that close to them, that might be why the jet came over and harassed it the way it did, and not way out there in the Black Sea like where that marker's at. But Enforcer, would you like to weigh in?
So this is actually a picture from satellite footage showing the Russian fleet out there trying to recover the drone, and this is one that I showed the other day. It actually has some coordinates up here at the top, the vicinity of where these ships are, and it appears that they're all the way down here, at least according to the coordinates. And I wonder if we can line that up. Sadly, we can't line that up with the undersea geography of what it looks like down there, but that's at least what the coordinates on that picture say it's at. So it was all the way down there when it actually went down.
So you're saying that we know it was down this far?
Well, if this satellite picture is anything to go off of where the Russian fleet's looking for the drone, and the coordinates are correct on this picture, and that's if they are correct, the drone is all the way down here, or at least the wreckage of it was.
And who provided that picture?
This picture was provided by www.highsutton.com, or otherwise known as Covert Shores.
I have to admit, I'm a little skeptical because I don't really know the source.
But then again, we did show this on the news yesterday, and that is the Russian fleet. The Kreminna is right there, and we do know that the Kreminna set out from Sevastopol just the day before, and we saw that on pictures, to go out there and find the drone. So we know that it is out there, and that picture does show the Kreminna clearly right there. And so the coordinates, because assuming they got a hold of the satellite picture, I would assume that they did get the correct coordinates.
Maybe so. I haven't been able to confirm the other one yet, but I'm going to have to do some more research before I say anything else about it.
We'll have to see. Let's actually pull up this website. Covert Shores. Covert Shores. So it looks like they put up all kinds of stuff. Mostly naval information. Let's see.
Because they may have gotten the picture of those ships. Because also, where'd they get the picture of the ships from? Like, how did they have like a live satellite picture of it?
I don't know. But I mean, like it does show what it is, and it's not like it's like a fake rendered picture, because the graphics quality is about what you would expect from a satellite image. But I don't know.
Yeah, because I don't think this satellite imagery live is available to civilians.
Let's see. It says something Copernicus something data 2023 processed with an EO browser down here, and that's where they got it from.
I don't know. I got to do some more research.
So I guess we'll just have to see. So with that, we're on to the next one.
All right, and for our last poll, it says Turkey announced today it will ratify Finland's application to join NATO, and Sweden is put on hold. And what are your thoughts? 50% said, wow, Turkey is on good behavior. 4% said unsure. 23% said, let's wait and see. And 23% said, without Sweden, that is no good. And I have to say that if Finland can go ahead and get into NATO, let's go ahead and get that done. And it would be really good to have Sweden in, but if it's not possible at the moment because Turkey's going to hold it up, there's really nothing that can be done about it. No need to sabotage both countries just to make a big protest about Sweden. But Enforcer, what say you?
I'm going to have to be honest, it's not great to hear that Sweden isn't in NATO. Not really happy to hear that they're being put on hold again over what's really a minor issue. But at the same time, in the modern world, we don't even really need Sweden to be a part of the NATO alliance for strategic reasons. I'll explain. Back in the day, back in the Cold War, the plan was that if the war went hot, Sweden would join NATO almost immediately, or it would be annexed by a NATO country, and it would become a part of NATO through those means. The reason being that there's this island here that Sweden controls called the Gotland Island. This island was very scary, really, that its existence is in the middle of the Baltic Sea, because the fear is that the Russian Navy would race forward from the Baltic countries, and I'll show y'all a map of the Soviet Union, so that way I can show why the situation has changed greatly since then. Soviet Union map. Images, and we'll go to this one. So here's the Soviet Union, included all the Baltic states, Belarus, and Ukraine. That was all part of the Soviet Union. And as you can see, the Baltic states were a part of the USSR, and so the Russian fleets could be based out of St. Petersburg, or even the Baltic states for that matter. They could rush forward over a very short span and immediately annex the Gotland Island, which would allow them a anti-aircraft base in the middle of the Baltic Sea, meaning that they would gain control of it almost immediately. And on top of that, it could be a basing point to launch further invasions into Germany, Denmark, or even go further and start to just dominate this area. And that was incredibly scary to NATO at the time, and there were preparations to either find a way to control the Gotland Island or to get Sweden and NATO immediately, and that's why it was considered back then to be important. But the situation has changed a whole lot, especially now with Finland actually being admitted into NATO, meaning that you don't really need to worry about the Gotland Islands, because there's no way for a Russian Navy to race forward from the Baltics and immediately take it. They would have to go through this, the Gulf of Finland from St. Petersburg to reach the Gotland Island, and if there were NATO naval forces in Tallinn or Helsinki, they could pretty much create a barrier here, a blockade of St. Petersburg that would stop that fleet from racing forward and taking the Gotland Island, meaning that the strategic necessity of Sweden being a member of the NATO alliance, or even being involved in that war for that matter, would largely be moot, because there is no strategic importance to the Gotland Island anymore, because the geopolitical situation has changed, and there's a way we can cut the Russians off before we even get to that point. So, in my opinion, it's not great to hear that Sweden isn't joining, because it's great to know that the alliance could grow and add another member like Sweden, but at this... Oh, wait a minute. Actually, someone did say Kaliningrad. You know what? Thank you, Alexander Campbell, for saying that. I completely forgot about Kaliningrad, but let me check real quick. Do they even base sizable naval forces out of Kaliningrad? Hell, if they did, and it's going to be tough. Well, they got the submarine here. They got the museum submarine here. I guess they could use that. But I got to be honest with you. That was a good point to bring up, but at the same time, it looks like they don't have docks big enough to really support the Russian Navy. So the Russian Navy would still have to be based directly out of St. Petersburg instead of Kaliningrad. But that was a great point to bring up. I thank you for doing that, because I completely overlooked Kaliningrad. But at the same time, the strategic pertinence of the Gotland Island has still been largely brought around to being moot, because the Russian Navy in St. Petersburg, the Baltic Fleet, couldn't really get out of the Gulf of Finland if there was a large naval presence blockading them there. So with that, I hope that does address that poll fairly well. And with that, we are on to the next one.
All right, and that was our last poll. That was the fourth one. So we are now moving into our super chat questions and then our live chat questions as usual. And up first, we have that $400 donation from none other than Mark, Slava Ukraine. Peter, the horse is here. But anyway, Mark says, really in Canada this time, and it's not a VPN.
And I gotta thank you so much for the support, Mark. And also, it is good to hear that you're back in Canada. It's always nice to hear that we have folks in Canada.
Peter, the VPN isn't here.
But anyways, thank you so much once again. Now, I have to ask you this, Mark, because it seems sometimes like you're Mr. Worldwide. When you are in New Zealand, are you really in New Zealand, or is that the VPN saying you're in New Zealand? Because now I'm interested. But still, thank you so much once again, Mark, for the massive support and helping this channel to keep on running, because you're helping us to keep the lights on behind the scenes. Although, that is just a saying. I want to make that clear. Literally not keeping on the lights because we live in the basement of our parents' house. But we do pay rent, so that does help us to keep the lights on in a way, as in being under these lights. And so I got to thank you so much once again for the support and helping this channel to keep on running. And with that, we are on to the next one. But thank you so much once again.
All right, and Enforcer, also, thank you very much, Mark, for that. And also, back to that question that Mark put in earlier in the live chat. I just remembered that somebody showed me a very good source of live marine traffic the other night, and I haven't looked into it yet, but I just pulled it up, and I sent it to your DMs, Enforcer, and you might want to take a look in the Black Sea and see if we can spot maybe a gathering of ships and see if it matches up with that photo you just looked at.
All right, all right. I agree. I've actually checked this out before. No. Thank you, thank you. So let's see here. Wait a minute. We got some blue ships here, tugs and special craft, received via satellite. So we can see a grouping here, but it appears that it won't explain to us what these are. Well, let's see if it will do that on anything but a red marker. So this is
That's
a tanker. These are tugs and special craft, and that's the grouping right there. That looks like the exact same layout of the fleet that we were seeing earlier.
I wonder if it's in blue. That means like there's no identification for the ship. Maybe that is the Russians.
So let's look at this one. This one's in green, and that is the Stefanos T, which is a bulk carrier. This one here in red, it is the oil chemical tanker, the Disley Denise. And then this one here in blue is a hopper dredger. I don't know why that one's in blue, however, because it doesn't really seem that special. But let's see here. Let's go back down to here. What's this one? So it looks like these don't have any identifiers, and a couple of these don't either. But this little blue clump here, I mean, like, why in the world are they there like that? And it's not showing any direction to travel for most of them. They're just sitting in place. So I would have to say that is probably the fleet that we were looking at earlier, and that lines up directly with the coordinates that we saw as well.
Interesting. That could be it. And if that's the case, that would suggest that the drone, there's no way it just like floated over there. Like it would have to not be close to Crimea. So maybe, I really can't explain why the drone video would have shown, you know, a part of Crimea. Maybe we were looking at something different from a different angle, but I'll still have to go back and look at that video.
Well, good question would be, if it's that close to Turkey, maybe that was a part of Turkey.
Yeah, it could have been, although it was looking behind it. I don't know, I don't know the distance between that spot right there where we think it might have gone down and the land behind it. It would be kind of unlikely to see it, but it's possible.
Maybe. Let's go back and look at that drone footage, because we actually have it here. So let me just go back and grab it, and we'll take a look at it. Alright, so those look like clouds in the distance. There's the Su-27. It's coming up and spraying the MQ-9 with fuel. See it fly over.
And is this the short video or the long one?
This one, I believe, is the short video, because this is the second one. I don't see any land in the horizon anywhere on this film. It looks like it's in the middle of the sea. And then there's the collision right there. Also,
yeah, I don't know if there was a...
Oh, go ahead. No, you go ahead.
I was about to say... yeah, good point. But I'm not sure if it was in the longer video or not, but there was a shot in one of these videos, and many people were posting it, showing that there was a landmass behind it in one of the shots. I'm not sure which one it was, though. It might have been the really longer one that the DoD released.
Well, if the drone was down here, and let's say, how far can you see at 30,000 feet? Let's just say the drone was at 30,000 feet, around 50-60 kilometers in normal weather. Was the line of sight at 30,000 feet. Line of sight of around 211 miles. Let's just say it's at 20,000 feet instead, because it looked like it wasn't that high up. So 20,000 feet, how far can you see from a plane? At 23,000 feet, you would be able to see 173 miles in the distance. So if we whip out a ruler here, and we go back to this, and we say that that drone was about right here, which it should have been on the naval map. Oh, also, I gotta say this to Sax too. He said, Page gave the crew a little extra. I saw that ad, and like the ad showing up in the bottom corner, like the most random things. You had Enterprise car rentals, and then right after that, Page gave the crew a little extra. And it's like, what the hell does that mean? But anyways, 173 miles. So if that drone was at 20,000 feet where it was, you would be able to see, well, almost all the way to Ankara in the middle of Anatolia.
Interesting. It might have been looking at this thing, because you really couldn't make out from the photo I saw exactly what landmass it was looking at.
I mean, like, hell, even if the drone was right there in the Black Sea, it could pretty much see Crimea as well if it was at 30,000 feet, considering you can see out 211 miles. Oh, hell yeah, it could certainly see Crimea. You would see it in the film as well. It could also see Turkey if you look the opposite direction.
True, true. So we might have busted this one. Also, Magic Sky Girl said, hopefully we don't need a calculator for this. And thankfully not. We only need a ruler.
I get no respect around here. I tried to pull out a ruler and it told me that I was already average. Oh man, that was terrible. Oh. But anyways, with that, we're on to the next one. But I hope we addressed that fairly well. And it looks like we have gotten to the bottom of it. Even if it was able to see Crimea, at the altitude it looks like it was flying at somewhere in between 20 to 30,000 feet. Pizza Chef actually says it was at 55,000 feet. I don't know if the MQ-9 could fly that high. Max altitude.
I think you can, but I don't. There were no clouds below it whatsoever. It didn't look like it was. Oh, that's above flight ceiling actually.
Max altitude of an Su-27. Let's see how far it can. How high it can go. 59,000 feet.
Oh.
But that's at twice the speed of sound. That thing can't fly as slow as a drone at 50,000 feet. That thing's got to be flying over Mach at least for it to be able to stay up there, or else it will start to fall. So, it would have to be somewhere around 20 to 30,000 feet to make that interception possible at that speed. So I hope that addresses this fairly well. It looks like we tried to get down to the bottom of it the best we can, and it appears that it could have been well over towards the Turkish side of the Black Sea and still have been able to see parts of Crimea due to its altitude, even at 20,000 feet. So with that, I hope we addressed that fairly well. And with that, we are on to the next one. Thank you once again for the support, Mark.
And everyone's right. It's classified. And it's bussin'. But anyways, up next, we have a $200 super chat from none other than Charlie Nickel, who sent us those shirts and that we got today. And thank you again, Charlie, for that. And also, thank you for that super chat. It's very generous. He says, glad you guys like the shirts. And one question, do I now have to change my name to Mike? And he did mess up your name earlier, didn't he?
I did. I don't know why, because I sat there and read your letter, and we were really impressed with everything that you knew about the channel lore, although you said you had only been here since, I believe, after the Doctors Without Borders fundraiser on the year anniversary. So I was like, dang, he has been around very little. He just got here. But you already knew so much. And I saw your name on there, and then I made sure, I was like, Matthew, isn't his name like such and such? And he said, yeah, it's Charlie Nickel. And I said, okay. And then I sat there on stream and I called you Michael. I don't know what the hell made my mind like snap and call you Michael. And Matthew's like a true crime documentary. And then his mind snapped and he called him Michael. But still, you don't have to change your name to Mike. But I do thank you so much once again for those shirts. They were incredibly cool. And also, it's really neat to see that they're long sleeve. I don't own a lot of long sleeve shirts. I wear a lot of short sleeve shirts. So it was really cool to see the long sleeve ones, because I bet I'll look stunning in a long sleeve. I already don't look stunning in the short sleeves, to be honest with you. But still, thank you so much once again for support. We love those shirts. They were really cool. And with that, I hope we addressed that one fairly well. Thank you so much once again also for the massive amount of support and helping this channel to keep on running. And with that, we are on to the next one. And thank you so much once again for helping this channel to keep on running.
Yes, and I am going to be wearing that Bayraktar shirt tomorrow, because that is super cool. And also, the other ones are really cool. I like the LSN on the back as well. But thank you once again, Charlie. And up next, we have a $50 super chat from Magic Sky Girl, who says, worth the price of entry and much cheaper than a Friday night out on the town. Lol. And you guys are the best. And thank you.
And thank you so much for the support, Magic Sky Girl. And thank you so much for enjoying this channel and, of course, supporting us. I want to make this clear, there is no price of entry to this channel. The price of entry is just clicking on the video and watching it. It's ad-free. You don't even have to support this channel if you don't want to. But I'm glad to know that you do find it worth the price of entry, which is absolutely free. Some people actually don't find that price of entry to be worthwhile. Some people go, this sucks. And I'm like, you just got on here without having to watch a 10-second unskippable ad. And then they get banned usually within five seconds by Matthew. So you don't have to see him long. Most people don't even see him at all. But still, I gotta thank you so much for enjoying this channel, Magic Sky Girl, and of course supporting us to keep this thing running, because we try our best. And it's very flattering every single time whenever people say we are the best channel out there, we're doing great, because we try our best, and we really do. And it's crazy to think that folks like you, Manchester Sky Girl, find this channel to be really well worthwhile. And I got to thank you so much for that high praise. It's really an honor. And with that, I hope we addressed that fairly well. Thank you so much once again for the support. And Casey Johnson said, I want a refund. Here's your air. Here's your air. You didn't even give us a penny. Here's your air. But still, thank you so much once again. I hope we addressed that fairly well. And with that, we are on to the next one. You know, Matthew, considering that it is free to get on the stream, like you don't even have to watch an ad. If anyone like gets angry or offended at our jokes, I ought to start pulling out that line that Don Rickles used to go and use, where he'd sit there and say, "For the price you're paying to be here, this ought to be a knockout," or something like that. Because I mean, like, hell, I mean, like, you don't even have to watch an ad to get on here. It's quite nice.
Yeah.
You don't even have to pay to be in the live chat.
No, that to me is groundbreaking. Not paying into being the live chat. That's groundbreaking.
I think it is. I think it's absolutely groundbreaking because a lot of people push
Call them out.
Call them out. A lot of people push those memberships like they're going to die if they don't get you to have a membership. I hate the memberships. I think they look tacky. And we've never run one solely for the purpose it just looks tacky. Like I don't like the whole multicolor thing that goes on and the symbols and stuff. I'm like, that's just weird. And also on top of that, it makes it to where, like, if you do not have a membership, you look like an inferior viewer of the channel in the live chat, like a plebeian or something. I'm like, that just looks bad. I don't like that. And so
you also know what's crazy as well?
What?
The call them out guy was literally calling out somebody else today.
Really?
Yeah, he was calling out a pretty big dude on Twitter today, and I was just like, is this guy's like whole shtick going around and calling people out? Because he got jumped for it too.
So without going into great detail, what happened?
Basically, some OSINT channel like on Twitter was bringing up the issue that Mark just brought up and I brought up as well about the land being seen in the back of the drone video, and he proceeded to call him out. He didn't even want to hear it. He just went off.
I hear things out, but at the same time, it's like, I hear things out and sometimes I'll end up just sticking with my guns, but that's silly to just call people out like that, especially folks who are on YouTube doing their thing, because while I'll say this, I have different standards for different groups. Like the mainstream news, I'll blast every day because I don't like the mainstream news. There's really not a lot to like about them. And I'm sure the people who run these channels, and the people who actually have to run this news, this garbage, I'm sure they're nice people when you get to meet them. Everyone's a nice person when you meet them. But the actual quality of the news that they're putting out, it's not good. It's subpar. It's low quality. You can throw the stuff out and really care less about it. But the folks on YouTube, like me, usually put their heart and souls into this stuff, and that's why we usually don't go around and try and bash other YouTubers a whole load at all, because I understand what goes behind a single YouTube channel. I spend 60 hours a week on this. Matthew spends at least 20 hours a week just doing the stream, and I don't even know how much he's using doing the Twitter now, but he's putting in a lot of effort too. And so we don't really want to go around and bash other people who are using their massive amounts of time and effort to do this kind of stuff. So that's actually kind of lame that he would go and bash.
And also,
OSINT.
That's how you come across like news that nobody else has seen before, is by investigating all leads, even if they seem improbable. Sometimes you discover other things that were sort of sidetracked while you're looking at the lead that can find information that other people didn't see. And if you have a closed mind like he's got, apparently, you're not going to see anything new. You're just going to basically be in an echo chamber.
Yeah, I mean, and hell, I'll say this, not to ring my bell or anything, about how we will try and listen to stuff. When everyone said it wasn't actually an oil depot that exploded and it was a grain silo, we just asked y'all, can we get some information to back that up? And then we actually got it backed up and had to reverse out of our original news and into different news, because we actually found out the first news was incorrect. It wasn't an oil silo. It was a grain silo that was in a whole other city near Dnipro. And I find that kind of stuff to be important, to actually listen to people. I mean, we listen to folks, and sometimes we blow people away when they sit there and just go, oh my God, you're an idiot, you're wrong. And then they don't ever provide an explanation as to how we're wrong, and they're just really rude about it. Yeah, you get kicked out for that. But if you sit there and say, hey man, that might not be correct, it's actually somewhere else, we'll listen to you. Because I think that's very important, especially if you're running the news, because not everyone's going to get everything right. No one gets everything right, even on YouTube. And a lot of people try their best, and, despite everyone's best attempts, even our best attempts can't get everything right. You've got to listen to other people every once in a while, and you can scrutinize their stuff, but you can't just sit there and lambaste it without at least looking at it, giving it the due diligence of seeing if it is correct or not, based off of what you've seen and every other information you can find. So, anyways, with that, that was crazy. I didn't hear about that, actually. But with that, we are on to the next one.
Also, y'all be sure to join our Twitter because I'm putting a lot of time and effort into investigating all those leads, and I post them there as I find them. And sometimes we cover stuff that mainstream news doesn't even cover. So would you imagine that? Excuse me. But also, I put the link in the live chat as well. So if you want to join, it's in the description and the live chat as well. And also, thank you, Super Bunker, for the kind words too.
Thank you. I was
in
just
the
reading
in the
that,
live
actually.
chat.
And I thank you for that. We try, Super Bunker. We really do try. We try and put in our best. And you know, and I'll say this: Matthew and me have gotten a little bit more, I guess you could say, tougher with things as time's gone by because we've dealt with certain things so much over time. You know, that's like once we see something, it's like we know where this is going, and then it looks like we're being really tough. But we try our best to listen to other folks. Like when y'all say stuff in the live chat, like, hey, you know, like when a lot of people came in and said, hey, I thought the bridge was blown up in Crimea, it looks like clickbait. Then we went and changed the thumbnail in the middle of the stream because apparently everyone was misunderstanding what I was getting at. And I won't go through that whole thing, but you know, we try and listen to folks. We really do. And so I'm glad that you have a lot of high praise for us because we try our best. And so with that, we are on to the next one.
All right, and the next super chat goes to BC Skyman, who puts in a $40 donation. And thank you, BC, for that support. He says, will Putin ever be tried for his war crimes? Is there any chance it'll actually happen in Slav Ukraine?
And I thank you so much for the support, BC Skyman. It's going to be tough. I got to tell you, it's going to be really tough to hold Putin accountable for war crimes because the only way I could see that happening is if he flees and somehow he gets caught, or if the Russians themselves have a coup and then hand him over to us. Those are really the only two ways I can see him actually being held accountable. If those two things don't happen, he'll probably live his days out in Russia, most likely as the leader of Russia still, and then just eventually die and he won't ever be held accountable for his crimes. There's a lot of people in history that have ended up going down that route, like Stalin. You know, well, I don't know if we can talk about Chairman Mao, but Chairman Mao, for one. Let me think. I think actually, well, I'm not going to say him because I don't really know about his fate. I don't really know what happened to him. But there's been loads of them. I mean, like, just to put it down in simple terms. Well, actually, Francisco Franco. That's a good one to say, from Spain. There was a lot of people who have committed atrocities against their own people, against other people, and they never got held accountable for it. I mean, like hell, Hitler really even didn't get held accountable for his crimes. He killed himself before they could actually get to him. And Hermann Göring did as well. Hermann Göring, I mean, did as well during the Nuremberg trials. He got a cyanide capsule in his cell, and he killed himself that way. So there really is a high chance that he'll never be held accountable for his crimes. This is an absolute shame, but I hope that this time's different than the norm, and they actually find a way to get him and hold him accountable. And so with that, I thank you so much once again for the support. I hope that does address that fairly well. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And the next one goes to Super Bunker 9000, who is our in-house NAFO member, along with a whole bunch of others that we found out are in our live chat, who puts in a $25 donation and says, didn't our military learn from the incident when Iranians shut down one of our drones some years ago? Why is there no self-destruct device in the drone in case it is attacked? F. Putin and his minions and Slava enforcers.
And thank you so much for the support, Super Bunker 9000. Our first ever NAFO member that we actually knew about that watched the stream, and I gotta thank you so much for being a dual citizen of the Lee Spring Army and NAFO. And to answer that question, I would assume that they did learn about, well, from that incident with Iran, that they should have some kind of a way to destroy the drone, or at least destroy the critical information on it. I believe they may have even had that back then, because I feel like that would be something you would consider, considering there's no way for a person to blow it up on the location of the drone. They have to do it remotely. So I would assume that they had that back then. It's just that it didn't work, or they weren't able to conduct it. And I would certainly think they have that now, although they're not being clear about it. And I think it's very important for a government to be as transparent as possible about anything and everything going on as best as they can. And nowadays, that's used as a catchphrase. I will say this, because this is something that both sides do, so we can talk about it. Nowadays, being as transparent as possible is like a a keyword that the politicians use to then say we're going to give everyone no information, but we're going to make it sound like we're giving them everything we can. So they'll say something like, we're going to be as transparent as possible, and then you go, okay, so where did that $5 go that's unaccounted for in the budget? Oh, we can't say. And stuff like that. It's like, what the hell do you mean you can't say? You can obviously, anyways. That's something that I think should happen, because right now there's a bunch of Russian spin doctors who are going to be churning up the engines inside of their computers, getting those things spooling up to sound like a jet engine, and putting out all kinds of BS, and there's going to be absolutely nothing to contradict it, because our government's going to say that everything about that drone is classified, and everything can't be. They should say something like, we've destroyed the drone's sensitive information. There's no way they can get it. Like, you can say a statement like that, and then they say, well, how did it happen? How did it get destroyed? Say, we can't really get into that because that's sensitive information about how the drone works, but I can guarantee you that there's no way that they'll be able to get any sensitive information out of it. I mean, like, why not say something like that? I mean, like, they sit there and say, the drone has been wiped. Well, did that really get rid of the information? That's classified. We can't really tell you if it was effective or not. It's like, what the hell do you mean? That's the whole point of coming out and making that assurance to the public. So with that, I hope that answers that question fairly well. And thank you so much once again, Superbonker 9000, for the support. And I hope I answered that fairly well, at least in my opinion.
All right. And with that being said, we're on to our next one, which goes to Mike D, who puts in a $22 donation and says, I don't know when, but my feeling is Putin will be kidnapped by the CIA, MI6, Mossad, or a combination. It will be the most clandestine operation of the 21st century. He will face justice before he dies in Slav Ukraine.
And I thank you for the support. And a very interesting idea. I don't know if it will be very easy to pull off. I don't know if the Mossad would get involved. I feel like the Mossad would actually avoid the situation, considering that Israel is kind of running the fence as well, kind of like Turkey. But I would have no doubt that someone in the West would try and do something like that. But I don't know if it would really be successful or not. So with that, I thank you so much once again for the support. I hope that does address the comment fairly well. And thank you so much once again for the support, Mike. And that his name is Mike.
That is Mike.
Yeah. Unlike Charlie, who I called Mike. But still, thank you so much once again for the support. I hope I addressed that fairly well. And with that, we are on to the next one.
All right. And up next, we have a $20 super chat from Tony Fleming, who says, just for the hell of it, Dio Presso Liba.
And thank you so much for the support, Tony. Make sure to drive that car more carefully. And thank you so much once again for supporting this channel for the hell of it. And also, De Oppresse Libre, I think is how it's pronounced. And so with that, thank you so much once again. I hope we addressed that fairly well. And thank you for helping this channel to keep on running. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And up next, we have a $20 super chat from Chase Matty, who says, hello from the Quad Cities, Illinois and Iowa. What if Ukraine armed forces use their big counteroffensive to storm Donetsk City and decapitate the DPR using the southern offensive as a fake out? And thanks, y'all. Slava Ukraine.
And Slava Ukraine. And could you tell me where they are again?
Quad Cities, Illinois, Iowa.
Quad City.
Quad Cities.
Quad City.
Quad Cities.
Oh, cities. Quad Cities. Let's take a look at that. Oh wow, there's actually just a town called Quad Cities. Oh, it is.
That's wild.
Oh, it's quads. It's Quad Cities. There's Davenport, Bettendorf, Rock Island, and Moline, and that makes up the Quad City. What the hell? I've never heard about this before. That is like bizarre. Oh my God! It's the Rock Island Arsenal. This is where it's been the whole time. How the hell did I not know that, Matthew?
I don't.
Look, Matthew, it's the atomic cannon.
Oh,
look.
Does it actually shoot a atomic bomb?
Yeah, it's a 16-inch gun that would fire an atomic round. There's actually a video of this thing in operation. You want to see it?
Yeah.
All right. Let me pull it up.
Send them to Ukraine.
Oh no.
Use it like normal artillery.
Let's see. The atomic cannon. Here we go. I found it. So, here's. Let me see if this is copyrighted or anything. Okay, so it's from Wikipedia. So this ought to be public source.
10, 25 May, proof tested another delivery system. the Army's 280mm gun. When this shot was added to the program, some additional effects tests were scheduled to observe results of the low burst height, approximately 520 feet above ground.
Oh dear.
Oh, dear.
No gun type assembly had been
The
detonated
whole gun
since
rotated
the Hiroshima
backward.
bomb. The weapons development scientists had on this shot their first opportunity to study the nucleonic behavior and fireball configuration of such a device.
Damn, son.
Yield 15
Dude, that thing had
kilotons.
travel time.
Unlike the situation with an implosion weapon, the scientists were here able to observe fireball growth from a body of fissionable material whose exact shape and dimensions at the moment of detonation were known.
And that's the end of the clip.
Man, I wish people still talk like that today. That was so cool when people talked like that.
Well, I can try and talk like that the best I can. And of course, we can give it a good try,
I mean, you could.
I mean, that wasn't really passing, though. I guess that wasn't a passing grade, because Matthew was very quiet on that one. He was like, that's not it. Oh, look, a BMP.
Oh.
We just got a BMP in the middle of our park. Oh, look, a Tunguska back there, too. Wow, look, in Russia, this would be frontline equipment. Here in America, this is a museum piece. Oh, man, look at that. There's a real picture of the Tunguska up close. Well, actually, it's not the Tunguska, it's the Shilka. Whoops, sorry, everyone. I messed that one up real good.
Call him out.
Call him out, call him out. And we got the little M50 Ontos, or the Ontos, I don't know how it's pronounced. But wow, Rock Island Arsenal is one hell of a place. I like it. And if y'all are wondering why I'm like a big into the Rock Island Arsenal, this is where a lot of the older guns come from that you can buy at the CMP. And also, like, look, you can even sleep in these creepy looking beds in the middle of the arsenal. So let's see if it comes
Why does this look like a mafia style city, like where you see one of those old cars that can go by with a Tommy gun?
Hey, Venny, give him the grease. I don't know. It kind of looks like that, doesn't it? Oh,
Give him the grease.
Yeah, give him the grease, you know.
What in the world's that?
I don't know. It was some kind of side of a bus. We're not going back, though. We're not going back. We're not going back. We're not returning. But, man, nice town. Nice. Well, at least one of the nice four cities. And so with that, thank you so much once again for support and sharing with us where you're from. And now it's time to get on to the question part of that super chat. So with that, what was the question?
What if the armed forces of Ukraine use their big counteroffensive to storm Donetsk city and decapitate the DPR using the southern offensive as a fake out?
That would be an interesting idea, I would say. However, the fortifications that the Russians have in the Donetsk area, as well as the Ukrainians have in the Donetsk area, are incredibly strong, and it's very hard for both sides to break through, so it would be a very high casualty offensive if they were to do that, and it would be running headlong into one of the heaviest defended areas in all of the country. So I think that a southern offensive would probably be better because it's on perfectly flat ground. They did build up defenses down here, but they can probably be overcome fairly easily considering it's flat ground and there's a lot of room for maneuver. And also it has more potential for impact on the war in Crimea and also in the remainder of the Kherson Oblast that hasn't been retaken yet. But still, that is an interesting idea, and I would not rule it out. I will say that. I wouldn't rule it out. But I think that there would be more potential in the Melitopol direction instead of Donetsk. But still, thank you so much once again for support. I hope we addressed that one fairly well. And, let's see. Someone said, let's see. NJM said a certain impression, Matthew. And, you know, I wouldn't do that impression because, the liberal media, they're lying to you. They're trying to, But anyways, with that, I hope we enjoy.
Man, they're turning the frogs.
They're turning the friggin' frogs. A little, I don't know. I can't say it. But anyways, so that's on to the next. I hope that made your day, NJM.
Yes, indeed. And up next, we have a $20 super chat from Greg Carmen. He says, "Tell it, boys."
Tell it,
and
boys. Go ahead, Matty. Go ahead.
No, so what are we telling? That was a question.
Oh, I thought you were about to go and say something else, but still, I got to thank you so much for the support, Greg Carmen, and that's exactly what I say that's exactly what I would say. Let me make sure to phrase this correctly instead of getting the phrasing wrong. That's exactly what I would say if I was out there at an argument with some people. who were trying to call him out, I would say, "Tell them, boys," and then get the Lee String Army on him. But still, thank you so much once again for the support, Greg Carmen, and we will tell them, boys. Or should I read that off like Sam Elliott? Let me try that.
Read it off like Rodney Dangerfield.
Oh man, tell them, boys. Oh man. I'm telling you, it's not great around here. Tell them, boys. Oh man. I got put in a hotel yesterday, the dog hotel. Oh man, it was terrible. But hey, the rates were good. It was at least $10 a night. Oh, but they charged me extra because I looked so ugly. Oh man, it was terrible. They told me I looked like a pug. My eyes were popping out of my head. Oh man. Oh, it's bad. Real bad. Oh, my parents back in the day, they used to not drop me off at kindergarten. They used to drop me off with a pound. Oh man. And the people, they'd take me in. They said, hey, that's an ugly dog, but I guess we'll put it down as something. Oh man, it was bad. It was terrible. But anyways, I hope that appeased you, Matthew. As you said, do it in a Rodney Dangerfield voice. And I was about to actually do it in a Sam Elliott voice too. Tell 'em, boys, or something like that. Have you ever wanted to find yourself somebody who could say, tell 'em, boys? Well, you found the right one. Interim Bush's baked beans. But anyways, thank you once again for the support, Greg. I hope we adjust that one fairly well. And also throw in some voice impersonations if you're into that. And so with that, we are on into the next one. And thank you once again for the support.
All right, and up next we have a $20 super chat from none other than Marion Deemert, who does not leave a comment, sadly. But Marion, thank you very much for that support. I'm not sure if Marion has put in a comment in a while with these super chats, but Marion, if you ever have a question for us, feel free to put it in the comment box, and we'll be happy to answer it for the very, very generous super chat. But anyways, thank you very much. And Enforcer, what say you?
And I have to thank you so much for the support, Marion. And what's funny is I'll see Marion in the live chat just going to town while she's here, like messages as much as possible. And then the super chat just comes in and it's just $20, and then she goes, good night, and then she leaves. It's like, wait. It's like, you can ask a question. We'd be more than happy to answer one. But still, thank you so much once again for the support, Marion. If you ever do have a question, please feel free to throw it at us. Well, as hard as you can. Oh, man. Back in the day, I used to play for the baseball team. I used to be the catcher, but instead of having a mitt, they used my face. Oh man, it was terrible. But I'm literally coming up with these on the spot, so hopefully they'd sound Rodney-esque. But anyways, if you ever have one, please feel free to throw it to us, because I'd be more than happy to answer it. But thank you so much once again for the support. I hope I answered that one fairly well. And with that, we are on to the next one. And it seems like Rodney has grown on people after time, man, because I don't see a lot of people hating on Rodney anymore. It seems like a lot of people actually like him, but we're still going to do him in moderation, because the more we do it, the more people will hate it.
I think it's just nostalgia. I think it's temporary.
Yeah, it's a temporary liking. And once we do it like more than 5 minutes, they'll hate it again. So with that, we're on to the next one. Thank you once again for the support.
All right, and up next, we have a $20 super chat from Ron Anderson. He says, I'll raise a glass of apple pie to you incredible young men. I appreciate that I can come here and get honest thoughts on what's happening in Ukraine.
Hey, and I thank you so much for the support and giving us a lot of high praise there. We always try and cover as best we can what's going on. Of course, we're pro-Ukrainian. You know, if I said we weren't, I'd be lying to y'all. I do have a bias. It's a Ukrainian bias. But at the same time, we always try and make sure that our frontline analysis is fair. For example, I'll say this because I say it's fair and then don't give a backing. I say it's fair because, in our opinion, it's dangerous for the Ukrainians to be in Bakhmut. The situation's pretty rough there. It looks like it could become a siege. That's just the stance, but we're still pro-Ukrainian. We'll back him up until the end of the war. And I'm glad that you do enjoy this a great deal and are supporting us and helping us to keep this thing running, because it's folks like y'all who do make this possible. And so, with that, thank you so much once again for the high praise and enjoying this channel so much and helping us to keep this thing running. And so with that, we are on to the next one. Also, thank you, Jason, for the kind words as well. I saw him say you were both doing thumb up, and thank you.
Thank you.
You were also double thumbs up. It's like 1984, Matthew, with that plus good and double plus good. I hated that book.
Yeah. Triple think and triple think, group think.
I got to say this. 1984 was an interesting book, but it could have used a little bit of better writing, in my opinion. I like the premise, though. The premise was something. Like War of the Worlds.
Ming-Sok.
No, not Ming-Sok. What the hell are you talking about? It's Ing-Sok.
I just had this
Was
calypso.
it Ing-Sok?
Yeah, yeah, it was Ing-Sok. It wasn't Ming-Sok.
It was Ing-Sok then.
There was Eurasia, there was Ing-Sok, and then there was another one. that I'm
Oh
thinking
yeah,
about.
I don't even know what the hell I was thinking about, but yeah, I remember now.
I just had this calypso. Is this up and minging?
But anyways, we're on to the next.
All right. So also Ron, a glass of apple pie. That is definitely
Also, yeah,
interesting.
yeah, the apple pie thing. I think he may be talking about those drinks you can get from like Greenwise Market. Oh, there is one in Birmingham, and it's like that apple pie drink. Did you ever have it, Matthew?
No, I've never seen that.
Well, I mean, like it was good. It was great, but oh man, I'm telling you, I got no respect around there. I started working there as a cashier. They turned me into a janitor. Oh man, it got worse. But anyways,
Man, they had you scrubbing those bathrooms
they
day and night.
They hired me. They hired me and said I was going to be doing mostly cashier work. And then for the last month and a half I worked there, every day I showed up, I was cleaning bathrooms the whole time. I was completely bamboozled at that job. But anyways, with that. Oh man, I hope we answered that fairly well. And with that, we're on to the next one. I guess you can literally say I got no respect right there. I mean, like even getting past the Rodney thing, I got no respect.
Yeah, well, at least you showed Mr. George respect. But anyways, up next we have a $20 super chat from Commander Prankster, who says pizza/coffee/Steam store funds for you guys.
Steam store.
Steam store.
Steam store. I'll tell you this. I'll share this with you. Matthew won't be able to see this. Let me go whip up my Steam. Let's close that down. Let's go to Steam. And let me go to my store. Let me go to my wish list. All right, so, yep, and that's my Steam account. You know, just in case y'all are wondering, yeah, I got a Steam account. This game right here, gotta give them a shout out. You see, because I'm actually on the Discord server, and I peep their Discord like every month or so. Yeah, I peep it. This game is the one I'm looking for. Yeah, I peep the Twitter. I peep this. This is the game I'm looking forward to the most out of every game I've seen for years. I'm going to be completely honest with y'all. This is a medieval city management game that looks like it's on the path to greatness. Not only that, is it not only just medieval city management. Things also a war game as well. You can take over other villages and build your fiefdom to be incredibly large. And I love this game. I played the demo when it came out. It was great. I've been watching their game. I've been asking them when it's coming out. I haven't actually gotten an answer. But this thing is great. It's incredible. It says it should be coming out in 2023, and I hope it does. It'll probably be in the fourth quarter of the year. But if it does, you can guarantee I will be playing this game in my free time because it was great in the demo. I'm sure it'll be great beyond the demo. It will be great in its actual release. Wonderful game. I love it. And I'm looking forward to it. So thank you for the support to the Steam Fund because I will be hopefully getting that game probably at the end of this year. And with that, we are on to the... Oh, wait a minute. Was there a question in that one, Matthew?
No.
All right. And so with that, thank you so much once again for the support to the Steam Fund. And with that, we are on to the next one. And thank you once again for the support.
All right. And up next, we have another super chat from Enforcer for President, who puts in a $50 donation. And thank you very much for that. And also, always a very cool username there. Enforcer for President says, Enforcer and Enforcer Matt, if you were to write a book, what would be your topics? And for me, I'd have to say, definitely not going to write a book about any struggles or anything I've had, as y'all catch my drift. But probably write a book about something that sadly I can't mention here on the stream because it's political, but it would be a political topic because that is my field of study in college. So I'll write a book on that, but can't mention it. But unfortunately, what about you?
I'm telling you, I get no respect around here. I say no politics, and then he plugs his book that he's going to have shadow written. Oh, man, I'm telling you. I'm just
Would you like to buy this book? I release one every other week.
No, turn into, what the hell's his name? Sean Hannity on Fox. All right, everyone, we're going to another break, but in between the last break and this one, I have written a new book. Just buy it or something, will you? And now let's go to My Pillow.
Man, that's Sean Hannity. He can write books like a fiend.
and then, all right, let's go over to My Pillow, and then the commercial comes on, and you see his nose just coming, well, his finger coming down from his nose. You hear a little bit of, and he goes, "Hi guys, I'm Mike Lindell. Want to buy a pillow?" But anyways, moving on from the jokes, and on into actually addressing it. I got to thank you for the support. And if I could write a book, I would write a book I would probably write a book on the history of. Hell, I mean, like, that's a really tough one. There's so much I would love to write about history, but, dang. Let me think. See, I'm not really into antiquity much. I know that's kind of weird. A lot of people are into antiquity.
Hell, a lot of people are into it. It's kind of normal.
But I would say, damn, it's tough because Turkey's very interesting. Turkey's history in the modern day is very interesting. But really, considering what I was reading last night about Poland, Poland's Cold War history was really, really interesting. I would love to write a book about the history of the People's Republic of Poland. Because that was a very interesting story I was reading last night. They weren't really like as communist as the rest, and they actually did fairly well economically until the late 70s, when they started to default on debts that were given to them, funnily enough, Matthew, by the United States.
Really?
Yeah, back in the day, we actually had some great relations with the People's Republic of Poland. And we were like giving them loans, and we were trading with them, and they actually were able to buy Western goods like Rolex watches and stuff in Poland, even when it was a communist country in the Cold War, because they had such good relations with us that were completely different than almost every other Soviet republic or Warsaw Pact member that there was.
That's interesting. I never knew that.
Yeah, and then there was this whole thing called the Solidarity Group, and they were kind of like the opposition to the Communist Party. They were banned really from participating in the government, but they were still such a strong force that the government would actually have to negotiate with Solidarity to try and do anything in the country. And then even then, Solidarity eventually corroded the Polish People's Republic's government so badly that Poland had democratic elections and finally had their first democratically elected government in 1991 and changed their name to, I believe it's just the Republic of Poland now, and became the democratic country that we know today.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah, it's wild. I mean, like I was reading about it last night, their economy, stuff like that. It was a very short read, but I was like, wow, I didn't know all that about Poland, and it just added a whole lot of extra depth to some of those Warsaw Pact countries, like Hungary. That actually rose up against the Soviet Union and the Warsaw Pact in 1968, and they were invaded because of it. And it's like, hell, I'd be interested in reading about their history, but. Anyways,
these history majors are something else.
Yeah.
Oh man, I'm telling you,
Anyways, we're on to the next one. But I thank you so much once again for the support and force for president, and I hope that does address that fairly well. Also, this may interest you as well, Matthew. Did you know that Vilnius, Brest, and Lviv were all Polish cities before World War II broke out?
So they gave it up to Ukraine?
No, the Soviet Union chopped up Poland after the end of the war. They gave them parts of Germany, which is why they're shaped like this today. Like here, I'll just show you the map. Let's see. Europe in 1939 map. Let me go find that map real quick. Actually, we'll go to 1938 because it looks like everyone's already carving them up. So we'll go to 1938.
Man, they carved them up like turkey. No pun intended.
Carve them up. And there's a map. You can see Poland right there. That's what it was actually shaped like before the Second World War. And then in, let's say, 1947, Europe map. I'll show you what Poland... Well, actually, hell, I don't even have to show you that. I can just show you Google Maps. This is what Poland's borders looked like afterwards. So they got large parts of Germany. I mean, like this area here where I'm drawing the line on the mouse, everything over here, that became Polish. They lost everything over here. And this was given to Ukraine, this was given to Belarus, this was given to Lithuania. All the Polish people that lived in those areas were forcefully pretty much moved from Lviv, Vilnius, and also Brest, and they were moved into the former German areas of Poland, and then the Germans that were living in the former areas of Germany were then forcibly moved from there and then into East Germany, and then from there most of them fled to West Germany. So it's kind of interesting because you'd never think about that, but the Soviets did a lot of people moving at the end of the Second World War. They would just take up entire groups of people that had lived there for hundreds of years, like the Polish in Lviv, and then just throw them out and move them to somewhere else, and then replace them with Ukrainians or Russians.
Well, that's definitely got to say a lot of information, but very interesting at the same time too. I would like to be able to retain information like that.
Well, yeah, I mean, like it's interesting nonetheless. But anyways, we got to get on to the next one. But thank you so much once again for the support and force for president. I hope that does address that fairly well. And with that, we are on to the next one.
All right, and up next, we have a $20 super chat from Eduardo Gonzalez. He says, "Happy St. Patrick's Day, you Englishmen." You Englishman?
English.
Here's some coin for beer from your friendly neighborhood Cuban infantryman.
I thank you.
Really?
I thank you for the support. And he's Cuban?
I guess so.
How the hell are you on the internet?
Like actively or like in the past or what?
That's kind of wild. Wait a minute, hang on. We got to have an answer to that question. Are you currently in the Cuban military? Are you in the Cuban army? Or were you formerly in the Cuban army? I got to know that one because that would be interesting to hear. And also, I would love to hear your stories about what it was like in the Cuban army. But,
jeez.
Anyways, you called us English? We're not English. We're Welsh. Like, we're like 70% something Welsh, and then the rest of it's English, Scottish, Irish, and then the rest of it's from these Scandinavian countries like Norway and Sweden. But that's only like 11% of it or something like that.
I think our relatives might have founded IKEA.
Yeah.
Not really.
It's like the Swedish chef guy on Sesame Street. Did he fancy IKEA? But anyways, we're Welsh, so we're not really English. But I do thank you for the support. I'm not going to get offended by that. There's some people out there who would go, hey, I'm Welsh, but it's no big deal. It's all pretty much the same. I know that's really about to piss off some British viewers, because they're really not the same, but just to make it seem like it's not a big deal. It's the same for the most part. But still, I thank you so much for the support. Sadly, we don't really drink much. We're both able to drink. We're both 21. It's just that I don't really drink. And Matthew doesn't either, I don't think.
Well, no.
That nervous laugh tells me otherwise, but I'm just kidding, man. I'm just playing with you. But still, thank you so much once again for the support. And happy St. Patty's Day to ya. Or what, Matthew? Or what? Hang on, Matthew. Let me.
Oh, don't rack the shotgun. Come on, please.
You know I gotta do it, man. It's like I gotta get that tax write-off. I'm telling you, man.
But anyways, with that, I thank you so much once again for the support. Happy St. Patrick's Day to you as well. And with that, we're on to the next one. But thank you.
I just realized that probably sounds bad from like a person that's never been on the stream before. Like,
No,
please, not the shotgun again, please.
Please, not the belt. Oh man, yeah, that probably didn't sound that good, but it's all in good jest. Good jest, right, Matthew? You better say it's right.
Yes, it's all good jest. Good jest. A jovial shotgun.
Oh yeah,
Oh yeah, it's a happy shotgun. Oh man, whenever my dad would drink the alcohol, he would say it's his happy juice, and then he'd pick up the gun and he'd say, "Hey, wish that could make him happy by taking me out." Oh man.
But anyway, so we're on to the next one.
All right, and up next, we have a $20 super chat from Ron Tilley, who says, with the Air Force planning retirement of the A-10s, do you think they could end up in Ukraine doing what they were designed to do?
Yeah, I think they could. I mean, like, it's definitely a possibility. So to answer that question in short, so that we don't have a firestorm starting in the live chat over the A10 again, I would say, yeah, I think it could be usable, and any support's better than no support, and considering that they're being retired, why not? And so with that, thank you so much once again. I hope we answered that question fairly well. And with that, we're on to the next one.
And up next, we have an $18 super chat from Flash1, who says, is Matt going to buy a Bobcat skid steer soon? And glory to Ukraine, LSA.
He is going to buy a Bobcat skid steer. And I think
I might, but they're a little bit expensive, though. They're as much as a nice car.
They are very expensive. I don't know how they're that expensive, but I guess, I guess.
Between a Bobcat and a motor car, I'd probably go with the motor car.
It's a motor car. And
and that was the day the weasel screwed over Mr. Frog, or whatever his name was.
For some reason, he didn't hire himself an attorney for getting screwed over in that contract, but hey, you know what I mean? But anyways.
And then those weasels pulled a fast one over him. They fleeced him.
They shows up to the attorney's office, to try and get the weasels to unweasel him, and then he goes into the attorney's office, and the attorney's a weasel too.
Fun fact, that was the movie when I was very young. I watched that one and knew I wanted to be an attorney after I watched that movie, because I was so inspired by Mr. Badger.
I gotta say,
not really, that's a joke. Don't nobody take that seriously.
I gotta say, in all honesty, that was probably one of my favorite little films as a kid, like one of the short ones, because it was an interesting one, and also it was very unique. It was very special. So you know, I mean, like, hell, it was nice. And it was nice enough that it had a ride for it in Disneyland until, like, the mid-2000s. I mean, it was there since 1955 up until the mid-2000s, and then they finally replaced it with something else. So apparently it was pretty popular with other people, too. But anyways...
Then they replaced it with, like, Frozen or some junk.
You know, some IP, you know, like, oh, Marvel, you know, go on the Thor ride or something like that. I bet you it was. But anyways, with that... Or, wait a minute, no, it's that cheap Edna Mode hotel that they got in Disney that everyone complains about now. You know, because it's just it's like IP placement everywhere. There's nothing, like, neat about it. And I heard that they neutered the Contemporary Resort. And I had to go...
Oh.
Like, let me go see if they did. Okay, so here it is. Here's Epcot, Magic Kingdom, Contemporary. Let's see if they got some pictures of the new Contemporary Resort hotel rooms. Let's see. Let me... Huh.
I always remember the Contemporary was always not very contemporary, kind of contrary to the name.
Yeah, it was just kind of meh. But let's see here. Is that one of the new ones?
Well, it looks like a Holiday Inn. And what's that, like $700 a night?
It was something like
$388
a night. It seems like the prices have actually dropped, kind of. But
it's still pretty damn steep.
Boy, how are you liking that cardboard?
Oh, Mickey, I'm constipated.
Man, the food at Disney is like unedible. I don't know if any of y'all noticed that, but when you eat Disney food, like you can't pass anything for the next week or two. Like it's like concrete. It's like piecrete. You put that stuff in your guts, it's not moving anymore. But anyways, with that, hope we addressed that fairly well. Thank you so much once again for support. I don't even know how we got down there to that rabbit hole, but with that, I hope we addressed it fairly well. And we're on to the next one.
All right, and the next one goes to Tim Snuck2, who puts in a 10 and says the West seems to be taking a boiling frogs in water approach. Talk about F-16s, send MiG-29s, and do you think older aircraft like Harriers and Phantoms could be sent? Longtime watcher and love the channel.
Thank you so much for the support. And a great question there. I believe that older aircraft could be sent very easily. However, the Harriers no longer are being assembled, so it would be a little bit more difficult to find parts for those aircraft to keep them running for long. But still, I think a Harrier like an AV-8B2 could do fairly well. Also, but that's in limited roles, in limited conditions. I think that other aircraft could do fairly well too, like well, actually, all the aircraft that I was about to say are so dated at this point, you would just have to give them like an older version of the F-15 or something like that. But I would say that they certainly should get support in terms of aircraft that aren't just MiG-29s, that are actually something modern and from the West, like an F-16. And so with that, I hope that does address that question fairly well. Thank you so much once again for the support and the high praise. And with that, we are on to the next one. And thank you once again.
And up next, we have a $10 super chat from CK Bold, who says, take a live chat question.
And we will take a live chat question, CK Bold, and thank you for the support.
All right, and this one goes to Paula McDonald, who says, Matt and Enforcer, did you see that Putin is honoring the pilots who took out the drone?
No, I didn't. I'll have to try and find that sometime around, but I haven't seen that yet. So with that, thank you so much once again for sponsoring that live chat, and I hope we answered that fairly well. And with that, we are on to the next one.
All right, and up next we have a super chat from Chip Kerwan, who puts in a $10 donation and says, Enforcer Bros, fair warning, in all caps, law firms, courthouses, 501(c)(3)s, packed full of bots. You must adeptly sidestep without comment or missing a beat. Fantastic training. Push, push. And Chip, you are definitely correct. The courtroom is a place where you might have very rude judges and things like that, and I've seen it firsthand. So this is good training, I agree. But Enforcer, what say you while I'm over here going through a coughing fit?
My name from here forward is now Enforcers. Thank you for this.
I'm having a really rough time with the cough tonight.
Oh, man, you're telling me? Oh, man, I get no respect around here. I was trying to talk the other day, and my throat just quit on me. Quit on me, I tell you. It didn't even put in a 2 weeks notice. Oh, man, it was terrible. Terrible.
But anyways, to answer that, I would definitely agree. The courtrooms are packed with some very interesting people. And I would have to say that sometimes the judges here in Alabama can be somewhat questionable, me personally. But nonetheless, that's the kind of system we have in this country, and we'll have to make sure to be prepared to operate around the best we can. Yes, sir, yee-ho! So with that, thank you so much once again for the support. I hope that does address that fairly well. And I gotta say something. I gotta say something, folks. If you're going to go into a professional setting, like a courtroom, do not wear silly socks.
Please don't.
And don't wear sketches with your suit, please. And make sure to wash your hair. And also make sure to get a nice looking suit, not something that looks like you got it from the vintage store or the dollar store. Because you're supposed to be you're supposed to be professional, and wearing silly socks does not look professional. I remember we went to a courtroom one time and we saw an attorney that was wearing Mickey Mouse socks under his suit. And I get that it's fine to be funny sometimes, like you're going to a cocktail party or something, and it's like, it's a little loose and informal, but still formal. Like, that makes sense. But going into a courtroom to represent someone on possibly a murder charge and wearing Mickey Mouse socks, that doesn't really set a good look, you know what I mean? So with that...
That's when the judge said, "You like Mickey now, do you?"
I'm gonna teach you the ways to run this government could screw you over.
Yes.
But anyways, that...
Also, I saw Hoodoo Texas say in the chat, I think he meant to say at Enforcer Matt, but he put at Enforcer for President, so I think that was a mistake. But he said murder trials were the most interesting for me as an attorney, more at stake and almost always interesting facts. Not all defendants or victims are created equal. And I saw Enforcer for President say, at what moment did we decide we wanted to be lawyers? And it was back in 2015 when I was interning at a law firm. I actually got to sit through an entire murder trial, and I was interning for the defense attorney's law firm. And that is the moment that I realized I want to do this, because there's nothing, fun or, positive about somebody potentially murdering somebody, but the guy was actually innocent. And it was very interesting to follow that trial all the way through. And to see how the whole situation worked. It definitely is a lot different in person than it is on TV. But Enforcer, what about you?
I would have to say the reason why I wanted to become an attorney is because, Matthew was like, "Hey, being an attorney seems pretty neat." And I was like, "Yeah, it does." So it's like, well, just both become attorneys, I guess. So that's what we did. So with that, I hope I answered that question fairly well. And hey, we're already on the process of going to law school. We've both been accepted, and we're just going through the final processes of getting there and graduating college and getting the bachelor's degree, so we can move on over there. So with that, I hope that answers that question fairly well. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And also, your friend said something in the live chat. I'm not sure if you saw. I don't know what it means. I'm scared to read it off.
I don't know what that means either. I gotta be honest. I don't know what that means. But maybe. I'll say maybe. We'll stay on the fence on that one until we find out what it means. So with that, we're on to the next.
And up next, we have a $5 super chat from, let's see here real quick before I read that one off.
Oh, man, I get no respect around here. I've been elected for janitor. Oh, man, I'm telling you.
Do you see that one, man? Someone said the enforcer for janitor.
Yeah.
Oh, man. I gotta say, I like that one, though. We'll keep him around. I would keep him around.
Oh, man, but I get no respect.
Anyways, let's get on to that next one, Matthew. What do we got?
All right, and this one goes to the something of Russia, who says, "I stopped answering to my people last year, blyat. I had nothing to do with this invasion, blyat. The purge must come from my people, blyat."
And thank you so much once again for the support. And I would have to say, I thank you so much for picking the right side, at least from our perspective. And I thank you so much once again for the support, and also seeing that what the Russians are doing is illegal. They are invading a sovereign country for really no good reason. It's not a defensive war, it's an offensive war. And it's good to know that you see what's really going on. And so with that, thank you so much once again for the support, Bliet. And thank you for opening this channel to keep on running, Bliet. Though luckily you don't support the devil, Volodymyr Solovyy, Bliet. And so with that, we're on to the next one. Thank you once again.
All right. And up next, we're going to have a $2 super chat from Dupper Bob, who says, "Slava Ukraine."
And thank you so much once again for the support, Dupper Bob. Always here supporting this channel. And, of course, Slava Ukraini. And with that, we are on to the next one.
All right. And up next, we have a $2 super chat from Dark Warrior 137, who says, "A small price to pay for salvation." And very nice there.
And thank you for the support. And if you're saying that supporting this channel is a small price to pay for salvation, I thank you for the high praise.
Small. SMAW.
Oh, I get it now. Oh, okay. we playing little word games around here. All right. Oh boy. I'm just kidding. I'm playing around. But anyways, thank you so much once again for support. I guess that is a small price to pay. That's a pretty good one. I didn't catch it the first time because Matthew said it and it sounded like small, like a small thing. But still, thank you once again for the support. I hope that does address that fairly well. And with that, we're on to the next one. And thank you once again.
Yes, and thank you once again. And up next, we have a $2 super chat from the British Perspective, who says, "Great show, and the tramp has tires on the wings."
Man, why in the world do you have to talk about her like that? Well, I think you're support. Damn, son. Oh, man. When you come home with the tramp, but it's Russian. Damn, son. Where'd you find that?
Oh, boy.
Get that thing out of here. But anyways, thank you so much once again for the support. And thank you for sharing that with us because I think we did notice that yesterday. But with that, hope we answered that fairly well. Thank you once again. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And up next, we have a $2 super chat from Craig Platel, who says H.I. Sutton is a well-respected naval analyst.
And thank you for the support and backing that up for us because we didn't really know who he was. And of course, when we say that, that's not a shot against anyone. You got to remember, I don't really know who any actors are, so it's not like I'm saying they're insignificant or anything. I just don't know who a lot of people are. But I hadn't really heard about the guy, and it is good to know that he is the go-to for the naval stuff. So I would assume that his information is accurate. And it seems as though, off of the naval radar stuff, which, boy, Molly was showing a lot to the crew.
Oh,
hello.
Well, that was very nice of her.
Hello there, Molly.
What do you mean by that?
Well, she's just showing off her, I don't know. I don't really know how to make that sound clean, really. But anyways.
Oh, now I'm concerned.
well, we saw that. You remember the ad, Matthew, when we were on the page and Sax 2 said something about it, and then went to Enterprise Car Rentals, like, right after that?
Maybe.
Allegedly. Anyways, we did see the little naval fleet, the Russian one, out there looking for the drone, and so it appears that he was correct. It was at those coordinates. So with that, I hope we addressed that fairly well. Thank you once again for the support, and with that, we're on to the next one.
All right, and up next, we have a $1 super chat from Lauren, who does not leave a comment, but Lauren, thank you very much for that support, and we do appreciate it very, very much. And I think that is actually our last one.
Really?
I believe so.
What do we do? I'm just kidding. Thank you.
Well, guess what? We're moving on to the live chats next.
And I got to thank everyone so much once again for support. I hope we've answered all of y'all's questions fairly well. And of course, we're now moving into our live chats where we're going to answer those for the rest of the night, which is going to be about the next 16 minutes, most likely. And so with that, let's get to the foist one.
And the first one is the Morse code, as always. JP's RC's, Rumpelstiltskin, Cfay, Mark Hodges, Cliff Simonson, and also Paul Scholes. They figured it out tonight and said the Morse code says half of the best tanks in Russia have been destroyed, and Putin weeps.
That's the sound of money. And of course, y'all got that Morse code message correct. Absolutely, 100%. Putin weeps because the 15th T-90M has been destroyed, and that was about all the computer technology they had inside of Russia was invested in those 30 tanks, and half of them are now gone. With those half gone, now Russian kids cry because they cannot use a calculator on their tests, for the calculators have all been put inside the T-90M for it to function. And so with that, y'all did get the Morse code message correct. I hope that does address that fairly well, and thank you all so much once again for deciphering that Morse code message on the 387th day of the war. You know, it's not going to be long. We're only 13 days away from the 400th day of this war, and that's actually crazy to think that it's been this long. We're about to be going into the 400th day, Matthew, the 400th.
That's crazy. It's definitely not 3 days. I can't do math well, but 400 is a lot more than 3.
Man, you know, I gotta say, Matthew, this is certainly bigger than 3 days.
Yeah, say that again.
This is certainly longer than 3 days.
Not literally.
I'm just playing with you. Anyways, with that, we are on to the next one.
All right, and we have another super chat. This time from Jack Ray, who puts in a $13.37 donation. And I have a feeling there's some kind of symbolism to that, but thank you very much, Jack. He says, one more. Another one.
Another one. And thank you so much for the support, Jack Ray. Just put in one more, and it looks like you were actually upped one by Dark Warrior 137, which actually brings us into the next one. But thank you once again for the support.
All right. And up next, we are back into our live chat questions. And this one goes to Frequency Harmonic, who says, do you think China will provide Russia with enough equipment to turn the tables and win the war, or just prolong it?
Oh, Matthew, we had another one from Dark Warrior 137.
Where'd that one go?
It's a $2 super chat from Dark Warrior 137, who also said, also one more, frick it, might as well. And I gotta thank you so much for the support as well, Dark Warrior 137, and sending in another one on top of Jack Ray's, and of course helping this channel to keep on running. And I hope that addresses that fairly well. And with that, we're now back to that live chat question.
Yes, and thank you, Dark Warrior. And up next, we have that one from Frequency Harmonic that we said just a moment ago. Do you think China will provide Russia with enough equipment to turn the tables and win the war, or just prolong it?
It seems as though they're not giving them enough equipment to do either. It's just kind of a trickle, at least from what we know right now. But in the future, I think the Chinese would only give enough weapons to prolong the war. They don't really want the Russians winning it, per se, because the Russians are not really on good footing with the Chinese historically, and even now it's somewhat fragile, although a lot of people think it's really, really good. Although, it's kind of not. Anyways, with that, I hope that answers that fairly well. And with that, we're on to the next one. But once again, that's my opinion, so take it with a grain of salt.
All right. And up next, we have a question from Jaunty, who says, do you think that the U.S. should release playing cards featuring Putin and his cronies, like they did with Saddam Hussein during the Iraq War?
I mean, playing cards. What do you think I am, a player? I'm just kidding with you. I would say, maybe. I mean, the U.S. military isn't going to be hunting them down, so we don't really have to familiarize U.S. soldiers with his face. And anyways, everyone already knows what that ugly mug looks like. Look for the Squidward nose and the very wide face. Like, oddly wide. It's way too wide. It looks like it's round. I have very wide... Wait, hang on. Let me get the Squidward voice right. SpongeBob. Anyways, that's bad. That's bad. Anyways, with that...
That was actually pretty decent.
Squilliam fancy, son.
But anyways, we're on to the next one. I hope I answered that fairly well.
William Fancy Sons, have you seen the SpongeBob lore? He was actually a poser.
Squilliam fancy, son was Andrew Tate?
Yeah. He was the SpongeBob edition of an internet guru.
Here in my garage. I just bought this brand new Lamborghini.
But anyways, we're on to the next. I can't do that one too much. That one's just too silly.
Yeah, it's a little wild. But up next, we have one from John O, who says, how long do you think Bakhmut will hold out for given the recent gains by terror Russian forces? Do you think the Western equipment will help Bakhmut?
I would say they will be able to hold out for a good while longer. Of course, I can't crystal ball it. I don't know how much longer, because the Russians could launch something that takes over the T-0504 highway tomorrow, and then the Ukrainians withdraw. We don't really know. They are moving in the north, and they're trying to move a little bit further back, maybe to get behind Chasiv Yar even. But I would have to say, I got to be honest with you, I'm going to have to kind of declare ignorance on that one, because I can't really get into the battle plans and time them out too well, because if we went with timetables, the Ukrainians, according to our opinion, probably would have withdrawn out of Bakhmut a week and a half or 2 weeks ago, yet they're still there. So I can't really give you a timetable on that, but one thing I can say is that the Ukrainians are determined to hold the city, and they're going to be holding it as best they can. So with that, I hope that addresses that fairly well. And also, I see some people who probably don't know what Squidward is. They're like, what the hell is that? Like West Downer asks, what the hell is that? It's a cartoon character from a very popular child's cartoon that Matthew Me watches kids called SpongeBob SquarePants. It's supposed to be Squidward. So if you want to find that, you can. And then let me know if it sounds close or not. But yeah, that one was a little off the cuff. But anyways, with that, we're on to the next.
If nobody knows what that is, that probably is pretty interesting. But up next, we have a $2 super chat from Dark Warrior 137 once again. He says, take a shot for every fairly well you hear.
The general surgeon does not recommend that. Most people are going to die of liver poisoning. But still, thank you for the support, Dark Warrior 137. And also, thank you for once again helping this channel to keep on running. And so with that, we are on to the next one. I highly encourage that no one plays that drinking game. Y'all are going to die. So with that, I hope I addressed that fairly well. Take a sip. And with that, we're on to the next one.
And up next, we have one more super chat. This one is from Aaron Green, who puts in a $5 donation. He says, automated weather videos of Ukraine at Ukraine Weather. And yes, Aaron did send me that last night, and I did check him out. He creates weather models of what he thinks the forecast will be in Ukraine. Very, very professional ones, not like amateur ones, even though I wouldn't know what that looks like because I'm not a meteorologist type person, but very good. But, Enforcer, what say you?
I would say that is very interesting. I thank you so much once again, Aaron, for supporting this channel and helping us to keep it running, and also letting us know about that weather forecast system, because we might try and use that in the future. And so with that, thank you once again. I hope I addressed that fairly well. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And this question goes to Danny Coco, who says, Ukraine ain't getting these arms for free. Will NATO countries ask the assistance as credit towards their expected NATO contribution?
I don't know, because most of it's lend-lease, so that means that they eventually have to pay it back. So, I don't know. I really don't know how that works on the financial side of things, but maybe they'll count it as that, or maybe they'll just expect them to pay it back in bulk to the countries that gave the lend-lease weapons. And so with that, I hope that addresses that fairly well, and we're on to the next one.
And the next one goes to, let's see here, The Man, who says, Enforcer, haven't seen much on the use of PARM or Panzerfaust, and are they still being used?
We don't know if the Panzerfaust are being used much, because we saw them very early on in the war, and then we rarely even saw clips of those being used. So it may be that they're rare and there's not a lot of them, so we don't get to see them being used much, or maybe that they ran out of ammo and aren't using them anymore. But I will have to say, you're very observant, because I haven't seen them in use at all over the past few months. So with that, I hope that answers that the best we can, and we are on to the next one.
All right, and up next we have a question from Jillian, who says, did y'all see and hear about the Ukrainian soldiers or just jumping into the trenches?
We did. We've seen a lot of videos of Ukrainians assaulting trenches. We've seen that since the start, pretty much. So with that, I hope that answers that question fairly well, and we are on to the next one.
And this one goes to, let's see here, Slava Ukraine Max, I believe is how it's said, who says, address the demoted defense commander who spoke to the Washington Post and says Ukraine's best soldiers have been killed and then he got demoted and he resigned.
I actually haven't heard about that story, so I'd have to declare ignorance on it. But with that, we are on to the next one. I'll try and look into that and see if I can find anything about it, and also where that came from.
Yeah, interesting. But up next, we have a question from Robert, who says, has there been any word that Strykers or Bradleys have entered the fight as of yet?
Sadly, not yet. It appears that they're still conducting training in Poland, and once that training is completed, they'll start sending the batches of Bradleys into Ukraine along with their crews. Most likely, like in piecemeal, not at all at one time. So with that, hope that addresses that fairly well. And with that, we are on to the next one. Also, man, I saw you say to Activista, we gonna bounce out, not today. But anyways, we're on to the next one.
I tried to go find that song. I couldn't find it anywhere because I wanted to listen to it again just to torture myself. I don't know what's it called, but it's definitely interesting. But up next, we have a question from Who Dat Dragon, who says, can the Reaper drone survive 4,000 feet of water immersion?
I don't think it can. Probably. Because the pressure at 4,000 feet is pretty great, and fragile computer systems will probably be damaged greatly by the pressure alone. So with that, I hope that answers the question fairly well, at least in my opinion. Of course, I'm not a water density expert or anything. But with that,
you say you're not dense.
I'm not dense. Bring Dennis back on as a guest and go, I'm not dense. He'll go, yes. Well, no, I just say something like, no, you're dense. You're dense. But anyways.
There's a little sneak diss.
Yeah, a little sneaky diss. Oh, man. But anyways, with that, we're on to the next one.
And up next, we have a question from Jethro Bradley, who says, Enforcer, if Finland joins NATO but Sweden doesn't, what happens to Finland's mutual defense pact with Sweden? Doesn't it make Sweden a de facto NATO member?
The defense pact doesn't cease to exist. It doesn't make Sweden a de facto NATO member either. It's just an agreement in between Finland and Sweden that's beyond the confines of NATO. So with that, I hope that does address that fairly well. And with that, we're on to the next one.
And Astral said, does UA mean something other than Ukraine? It can mean University of Alabama. It can mean that. But also, most of the time, it means Ukraine. UKR is what I put, though.
Also, UA can mean up ass, but,
Never heard that before.
I just came up with that one just to throw that there. But anyways, here,
Interesting.
I'm just kidding with you.
All right. So up next, we have a question from Sean, who says, did you hear about FSB agents planning CCT next to railway lines in Poland, sabotage of monitoring for NATO weapons going to Ukraine?
I haven't heard about that. And I would have to say that's probably going to be pretty hard for the FSB to do, considering that they're about a B- in the intelligence agencies groups. It's going to be very hard for them to do that. I'd say that. And so with that, I hope that does address that fairly well, at least in my opinion. And with that, we're on to the next one.
Yeah, like everybody's trying to figure out what UA means now. Somebody United Artist Studios. Somebody said United Arabics. Someone said Aussie Land. Well, we're getting the answers to this question very quickly.
Alexander now so you professor is watching. Hey, it's my show. The professor can watch and he can get a laugh out of it. For the money he's paying to be here, it ought to be a riot. But anyways,
that paper just got an F.
Yeah, and I just failed the class. Dang nabbit. That looks like it just got a 0. But anyways, with that, we are on to the next one.
And up next, we have a question from Marius Venture, who says, news of Polish and Slovakian fighter transfers are great, but what is the current strength of the Russian Air Force, and will it make any difference?
We don't really know the current strength of the Russian Air Force and the aircraft-to-aircraft breakdown. We do know that they're 34% weakened from their original pre-war state. So, with that in mind, saying that, they aren't in as good a state they were at the beginning of the war, and they're also being used very little due to the high amount of losses per sortie. So, with that, I hope that answers that question the best we can. And it's good to hear that the Ukrainians will be getting a complete replenishment to all of the losses they've taken in their MiG-29 fleet, because that means that at this moment, once they receive all those MiG-29s, their MiG-29 force will be starting off practically fresh compared to the Russians that have taken 1 in 3 losses in their air force. And so with that, I hope that answers that fairly well. And with that, we're on to the next one.
All right, and up next, we have a question from John O., who says, did you see that frontline mobilized recruits are being forced to sign a contract with the DPR and not Russia, so Russia can avoid making any payments? And thoughts?
Well, I got to tell you, I have heard about that. Well, you've heard about that a lot, actually, about guys being transferred to the command of the DPR. And, to talk about the aspect from those soldiers' points of view,
oh man, I get no respect around here. I signed up for the Russian army and they hand me off to these goofy people. Oh man, terrible.
But I would have to say, have heard about it. And sounds pretty funny, actually. Yeah, and they are trying to avoid paying. So with that, I hope I answered that question fairly well. And we are on to the second to last question of the night.
And this one goes to WD408, who says, did you see the article that interviewed the Russofatti Siegel?
No, I didn't. I usually avoid stuff with Steven Seagal in it because it's usually just pure cringe. And so I just avoid it. So I haven't heard about that one, actually, but I will try and look around and see if I can poison my brain with some Siegalisms, like, when I was a state trooper, although I never had any experience in law enforcement, I actually took down El Chapo single-handedly. Or something like that, like the guy's just delusional.
He might have scared off El Chapo. He might have gone the other way. I saw him. He's like, oh, run.
Steven Seagal sat down at his table and said, so, you got any food? And El Chapo put a brick of crack in front of him and he ate it. He just ate it like food. And that scared El Chapo bad enough.
I can break this brick in half.
There's going to be something broken more than this cocaine brick.
El Chapo said, can you cut this brick? And he said, yes, I can cut the chops in half.
And then El Chapo was like, ew.
It didn't even hurt my knuckles.
Ew, you weirdo, get away from me. And then Seagal tried to do that stupid hand twisting thing in the air on El Chapo, and it didn't work. And he said, I guess you just don't have the mojo for it. You're below me, or something like that. But anyways, with that, we're on to the final question of the night. And so, Matthew, who's the lucky last person to throw in the luck? Oh, wait a minute, we got a super chat. We got to cover that
super
one.
chat.
We got a super chat. Let's get to that real quick.
This one is from Craig Platel. He puts in a 2 and says, Hungary. I think I'm going to say Hungary was 1956 and Czechoslovakia was 1968.
Man, I got to tell you, Craig, if you've been that hungry for that long, you must be dead or something. You must be starving to death over there. I'm just kidding with you. I did get that wrong. It was 1956. And I got it completely wrong. I'm just so stupid like that. You know what I mean?
Oh man, I get no respect around here. I try and quote history, and some guy corrects me. Oh man, we gotta ban him.
That's how any other channel would work, probably. Like, here's this video. Yeah, I don't know about that one. Banned. You know, it's like, get out of here. But I'm sorry, Craig. I did get that wrong. And yes, Hungary was 1956. Czechoslovakia was 1968. I did get that incredibly wrong. So with that, hope that answers the question fairly well. And now, with that, we are on to the final question of the night.
And this one goes to Danny Coco, who says, with all these SAMs, drones, etc. that we've seen used in Ukraine, are air forces reevaluating their usefulness?
I think a lot of air forces are. And I think that a lot of doctrines, we're not seeing it now because of the development of a doctrine and also getting technology to back up that doctrine usually takes a few years. We'll probably see that the U.S. really starts to integrate not this goofy drones that they kind of give people now. They're probably going to start integrating much more normal looking drones into the armed forces because the effectiveness of those has been shown to be great, and probably drones that can carry bomblets or ordnance, much like the Mavic 3s that we see operating in Ukraine. So with that, I hope that answers that question fairly well. And with that, guess what? It's the end of tonight's stream. I thank all of y'all so much once again for watching. 3,187 of y'all are still here watching live. Actually, it just went up a couple, too. It went up to 3,191. Wild.
Absolutely crazy, I'm telling you. Oh man, crazy.
But still, thank you all so much once again for watching tonight. It's been an absolute pleasure covering this news and answering everyone's questions. And if y'all have enjoyed it a great deal, make sure to subscribe to this channel because we run this news every single day of the week, just like this, 6 days a week, except for Mondays. And every single night, you can count on us being here at 10 p.m. every single time, on the minute, on the dot, covering the news and answering questions for the next 3.5 hours. And so with that, we're going to be rounding out tonight. I'll see you all tomorrow on Saturday to cover the next 24 hours of the war in Ukraine. Good night, good luck, take care, and of course, Slava Ukraini.
Love Ukraine, and remember to always peep the Twitter. It's good for your health.
I'd like to thank Peep the Twitter for their support.
Yes.
The Leaf Street Army sends its regards.
Усміхнеться доля, згинуть наші вороженьки, як роса на сонці, запануємо ми, браття, у своїй сторонці. Душу тіло ми положим за нашу свободу і покажем, що ми браття козацького роду. Душу тіло нашу свободу і покажем, що ми браття козацького